Chapter 2352. Ling Han tested the little beast's defenses again, and was stunned again. The little guy's defenses were astonishingly thick, enough to rival the level of pseudo-7-star pseudo-divine metal, on the same level as its destructive power. No wonder this little guy was called a battle beast. It combined terrifying destructive power and defensive power, and was born for slaughter and destruction. He couldn't help but think that the Xian'anai plane had battle soldiers, and the other world had battle beasts. Could this be a species born in the other world to protect itself? Because it was born at the ascending origin tier. This was too shocking, and did not conform to the laws of heaven and earth. Powerful strength should be obtained through bitter cultivation, and not born with it, reaping it without effort. Thus, if the battle beasts were born in the other world to protect itself, and fought against battle soldiers, this was actually a very reasonable guess. He exited the Black Tower, planning to ask Wally, "Wow, what a cute dog." When it came to Little Terror, all the women's eyes lit up, all of them looking like they wanted to pounce on it. Ling Han couldn't help but sweat profusely. These women just couldn't stand cute things, especially since they couldn't give birth themselves, so they had even less resistance towards cute things. Moreover, does it look like a dog? What kind of look do you all have? It looks delicious. Hunyao meanwhile propped up her chin, staring at the little beast, her saliva already brewing. Only she was different. Feeling Hunyao's hostility, Little Terror immediately walked towards her, bared his mouth, and revealed 2 rows of snow-white teeth. When it matured, it was very fierce, those 2 rows of teeth like sharp knives, causing people to feel a chill in their hearts. But now it couldn't be fierce at all, and instead made people feel that it was extremely cute, adorable to the extreme. It was like an angry puppy that had just been born. Who would be afraid? Ling Han couldn't help but smile and said, "Niao, you have to take it easy, this little guy is very fierce." Hunyao was naturally unafraid, and humphed and said, "A little guy, Niao thinks it's not enough to fill my stomach." Ayo! Little Terror released a roar, roaring at Hunyao. It was only a childish voice, and didn't have any deterrence at all. All the women couldn't help but laugh, feeling that this little guy was incredibly fun. "Come, let big sister hug you." Bewitching Maiden Rose stretched out her hand. Xiaoku was furious. It was not a pet but a beast. It was born to fight, so acting cute had nothing to do with it. Ayo! It howled again, but this time, it was not because it was angry. Rather, it was because Ling Han's finger was scratching its neck, and it was so comfortable that it couldn't have asked for more. The little guy looked at Ling Han resentfully. He was a majestic battle beast, not a pet. Ayo! He didn't expect that the girls would also rush over and touch him. This made the little guy so comfortable that his tail straightened up, and his eyes became even cuter. "He's a beast, a beast, a beast, you bastard." The little guy's belly was facing the sky, and he was completely defenseless, allowing the girls to ravage him. Of course, this was also because it knew that these were its mistresses, so it didn't dare to resist. Otherwise, if anyone dared to bully it like this, the little guy would have already exploded. "Terror and Battle Beast, Ling asked. Ling Han asked. "Battle Beast has," Ling Chen said. "Battle Beast? Battle Beast should be a biological battle beast, created by this plane to fight against this plane. They have high defense and destructive power, and are meant to destroy the battle beasts of this plane." Wally searched his memory and said, "War beasts should be biological soldiers created by this plane to fight against this plane. They have the characteristics of high defense and high destructive power, and were created to destroy the soldiers of this plane." Ling Han was curious and said, "Battle Beast should be a biological battle beast created by this plane to fight against this plane. It has high defense and destructive power, and is meant to destroy the battle beasts of this plane. However, heaven and earth can't interfere too much. Moreover, battle beast reproduction is extremely difficult, so they disappeared long ago. It can be considered a failed attempt by heaven and earth. If they're of the same level, they're obviously battle beasts," Wally said immediately. "However, battle beasts can't compare to battle beasts. If one battle beast can't defeat it, 10, 20, or even 100 can attack together." Ling Han nodded. Why did battle beasts go extinct? Now they could only be found in ancient tombs. It was because this was an undesirable attempt that they were eliminated by heaven and earth. They didn't want to waste energy on this anymore. However, although battle beasts were eliminated, it didn't mean that these creatures weren't strong. It was just that their numbers were too small, and they couldn't form a large scale. You actually have a beast. Wally was a little surprised. Although on his dead face, the expression of surprise was only a slight opening of his mouth. It was already very good that he was surprised. You don't have to admire me. I know I'm very powerful. Ling Han smiled. War looked at Little Terror. Buzz, his eyes glowed with green light, and he scanned Little Terror up and down. Roar! Sensing this green light, Little Terror immediately turned around and stood up. He stared at War, and a terrifying ferocious aura burst out. He didn't know War, but the light he was emitting made him feel uncomfortable and even angry. Once he revealed his ferocious aura, all the girls were shocked. Only now did they know that Little Terror had such a domineering side. It's a battle beast after all. Ling Han purposely stepped back and didn't stop Little Terror from attacking. He was very curious about War's strength. He could even absorb the void energy, one of the fundamental powers of the origin world. What kind of pervert was this? War didn't react and continued to scan Little Terror. Little Terror was completely enraged. Since Ling Han didn't stop him, his ferocious side as a battle beast immediately erupted. Tung tung tung, he moved his two hind legs. They were strong and powerful. Other people's legs were small, but their explosive power was shocking. Xiao! He instantly rushed in front of War and swept his claws. War retreated. His legs didn't move, and his whole body just retreated in the air. It was very strange. However, this kind of dodging was very efficient. No matter how Little Terror attacked, he could always dodge in time. Ling Han's eyes lit up. War should be using spatial laws, but it wasn't laws at the same time. It was very strange. This was the power of heaven and earth above laws. Laws were the materialization of the power of heaven and earth. In fact, they were also considered the power of heaven and earth. However, when warriors fought, they needed to first use laws, and then convert them into attack power or speed. This was a conversion process. No matter how fast it was, it still needed time. Thus, War had a chance to dodge. Of course, apart from War, the others also needed to use laws to dodge. This was also a conversion process, so there was no advantage to speak of. Ling Han considered. In fact, he could also use a little bit of the power of heaven and earth. That was because his body had been tempered by the void energy, and he could directly use his own power. He didn't need to first activate laws, and then convert them into attack power or speed. Theoretically, though my power is only at the peak stage of the ascending origin tier, my battle prowess should be more than this. If I can fully develop my advantage. He muttered in his heart. As expected, it was a smart move to let Little Terror fight Wally. War soon stopped scanning with the green light. As he calmly dodged Little Terror's attacks, he said to Ling Han, "This battle beast's genes are very strong. It's worth nurturing." Though battle beasts could definitely become celestial kings, celestial kings were still divided into 9 heavens. Chapter 2353. When it came to analysis, Ling Han was only impressed by Wall. Since he said that Little Terror was worth nurturing, then it was definitely worth nurturing. Ling Han couldn't help but rub his chin. Could he find a female for such a powerful battle beast, and have her give birth to a bunch of cubs to form a battle beast army? However, Little Terror had just been born. It wouldn't be right to have any ideas about it now. Forget it. I'll wait for it to grow a little bigger. Little Terror seemed to sense Ling Han's gaze, and couldn't help but shiver. It moved towards Ling Han, its eyes filled with resentment. Ling Han laughed heartily. With a thought, Little Terror immediately stopped attacking. He picked Little Terror up, and took out a large number of elixirs and immortal medicines. "Come, Little Terror. Eat more and grow up faster." His eyes glowed. He had already decided to use Little Terror as a breeding pig. Wait, is Little Terror male or female? He couldn't help but move towards the space between Little Terror's legs. Little Terror couldn't help but shiver, and clamp its legs together tightly. "Even if you're my master, you can't pry into my privacy." A Little Terror won't be wary. In the future, it won't be willing to mate with me. Little terror, that's a joyous thing. Why are you so emotional? That's right, it's still too young. It'll change in the future. Tyrant. At this moment, a voice came from outside the door. Ling Han couldn't help but be slightly surprised when he heard it. He pushed the door open and saw a charming young man from the Angel clan standing at the door. He was incomparably handsome and had a breathtaking aura that made people want to worship him. Why Jian? Ling Han nodded and said, "You didn't suffer any side effects, did you?" Huai Jian had broken through to the Nine Lotus realm while heavily injured. If he was unlucky, he could have suffered a serious Dao injury. That would be a big problem. Huai Jian smiled. I'm indeed injured, but I see it as a form of training. Once I erase this Dao injury, my battle strength will increase by another level. Ling Han's eyes narrowed. Actually, you can completely get rid of your internal injuries, right? Huai Jian was stunned for a moment before he said, "You guessed right. That is indeed the case." This guy was really crazy. He actually dared to deliberately leave an internal injury in his body when he was breaking through to train himself. Ling Han thought to himself that he wouldn't dare to play like this. It was completely provoking him. However, it had to be said that if Huai Jian could really use his great willpower to cut off the Dao injury, then his combat power would indeed rise to a terrifying level. If he wanted to surpass Ling Han, he had to use an unconventional method, because they had already reached the limit of conventional methods, or even surpassed it long ago. If he wanted to improve beyond the limit, he could only use extraordinary methods. There wasn't much difference between a genius and a lunatic. Ling Han smiled and said, "Do you want to fight me again?" His battle intent was very strong. Exchanging pointers with an expert like Huai Jian would be very beneficial to him. Huai Jian shook his head. "I'm already at 9 lotuses. You're only at 8 lotuses. If I were to fight you, it would be an unfair fight. When you reach the 9 lotus stage, we'll fight again." Alright. Ling Han didn't force the issue. Emperor stars were naturally proud, let alone Huai Jian. "I came to you this time to ask if you're interested in becoming a disciple of Lord Eternal Desolation with me," Huai Jian said solemnly. Lord Eternal Desolation? Ling Han was slightly surprised. Who was this? Huai Jian was also surprised. "Don't you know who Lord Eternal Desolation is?" Ling Han scratched his head. "I really don't know." Huai Jian shook his head. Lord Eternal Desolation is a heavenly venerable. Oh, so it was a heavenly venerable from the foreign realm. Ling Han chuckled. How could a heavenly venerable accept me as a disciple? Huai Jian shook his head. You're too humble. Your aptitude already surpasses most heavenly venerable descendants. If the heavens still don't respect you, then I wouldn't have the face to introduce you to them. There weren't many descendants of heavenly venerables, but because of their powerful bloodlines, it was extremely easy for them to produce emperor stars and reach the level of 18 lotus ancestral kings. However, it was impossible for them to cross the threshold of a heavenly venerable. At least, there hadn't been a legend of 2 heavenly venerables in the foreign realm. However, there were also differences in strength between emperor stars. For example, during the battle between the foreign realm and the immortal realm, Ji Wuming could almost stand against Qi Shui, and that was even when he was a small realm lower. Qi Shui was an emperor star, and he was also a descendant of heavenly venerable Qi Yen. But so what? If they fought at the same level, Ji Wuming would definitely win. Ling Han immediately started thinking about whether he should agree or not. He actually wanted to come into contact with a heavenly venerable. Since he also wanted to step into that level, it would be easier for him to understand the path ahead if he came into contact with one in advance. But the problem was, what kind of eyesight did a heavenly venerable have? Could his heaven-deceiving technique fool them? Wait, wasn't there still Wali? Ling Han muttered. Let me think about it. How about I give you an answer tomorrow? Huai Jian was indescribably shocked. Fuck. I'm sending you to become a disciple of a heavenly venerable, not sending you to the battlefield. No matter how many emperor stars you begged for, you still want to think about it. Even if you want to think about it, it should be heavenly venerable Hung Huang who thinks about it. If it wasn't for the fact that he really admired Ling Han and had a strong desire to defeat this opponent in the future, he would definitely have turned around and left by now. All right, he agreed. After Huaijian left, Ling Han immediately called Wali over and started asking him questions. You want to deceive an existence with a vitality index of more than 15,000? Wali's eyes flickered, as if he was making some calculations. After a while he said, No, you can't do it. Ling Han couldn't help but sigh. His hopes of coming into close contact with the heavenly venerable were going to be dashed. However, if I help you improve it a little, you should be able to do it. Unexpectedly, Wali made another big turn. Ling Han couldn't help but break out in a cold sweat. Could it be that Wali had also been infected by him and knew how to joke? Teach me, he said. Wali didn't teach him immediately. Instead, he asked him to teach him the heaven-deceiving technique. He would use it to improve it. Ling Han used time acceleration on him, and after a long while, Wali opened his eyes. Done. He nodded. His eyes shone as he taught the improved heaven-deceiving technique in the form of formulas and models. He said, This will be of some help to me as well. It will allow me to conceal myself better, so I won't charge you. Right, this guy hadn't changed at all. Ling Han looked at these formulas and models, feeling a bit of a headache. However, Wali would only present cultivation techniques in such a way. In his eyes, the world was like this. It was a gigantic model, and this gigantic model could be broken down into innumerable formulas. Everything had a logical basis. Ling Han didn't care about it for now. Not only did he memorize these formulas and models, even the women were no exception. It was mainly the Empress Hunyou and bewitching Maiden Ro. As for the other women, because their cultivation level was too weak, there wasn't much meaning in learning the heaven-deceiving technique. It wouldn't be able to deceive anyone, so it was better for them to obediently stay in the Black Tower. A day passed, and when Huaijian came again, Ling Han nodded decisively. All right, let's go together. Huaijian couldn't help but break out in a cold sweat. He wasn't begging Ling Han. Being the disciple of a heavenly venerable, would you feel wronged? Chapter 2354. This was because Ling Han had said that he wanted to go to Heavenly Lord Eternal Wilderness with Huaijian. Naturally, Yuan and Seven Frost had no right to say no. They could only send Ling Han off with envious gazes. But what made them depressed was that even the Empress, Hunyou, and bewitching Maiden Ro had fled with them. They had 2 Emperor stars, and could bring glory to 100 War Academy in the future. But would they dare to fight with the heavenly venerables? Ling Han and the rest set off. Huaijian naturally knew the way and led the way. They used the teleportation circle to hurry on with their journey. Wali still turned into a pendant and hung on the corner of Ling Han's clothes. He had also used the heaven-deceiving spell, and his hiding ability had increased by a large margin. After almost 7 years, they finally arrived at this place. This was an incomparably majestic mountain. It was so tall that one could look up at it with their heads held high. Brilliant lights shrouded the mountain, and it exuded a boundless majestic aura. Anyone who saw it would want to worship it. It was as if an Empyrean was sitting there cross-legged. This was called Mount Tianhuang, and it was also Heavenly Venerable Eternal Desolation's dojo. Empyreans all had different personalities. Some Empyreans were incomparably low-key, and it wasn't impossible for the world to not know of their existence. There were also Empyreans that were extremely high-profile, their reputations that shook the world. Not only was this Heavenly Lord Eternal Desolation high-profile, but he was also very fond of accepting disciples. He had more than 30 disciples under his wing. However, it was as if there was a curse that a Heavenly Lord could not produce a Heavenly Lord. Throughout history, every Empyrean had relied on themselves to walk the path of the strongest. And the highest achievements of an Empyrean, as a disciple, were limited to the 18 Lotus Ancestor Kings. They were only incomparably powerful, approaching the height of a quasi-Empyrean. Of course, geniuses would never admit defeat. For example, Huaijian. His goal was definitely to become a Heavenly Venerable. But why did he still want to be a disciple of Heavenly Venerable Hung Huang? Because he was confident he could break the spell. In fact, every Emperor star had this kind of confidence. But in the end, no one could break this curse. It only made this curse even heavier. Of course, Ling Han didn't believe it either. Otherwise, why would he come here? This could only mean one thing. Becoming an Empyrean was just too difficult. When they went up the mountain, Ling Han and the rest had already mastered the improved version of the heaven-deceiving technique. According to Wally, even a celestial venerable would not be able to see through it. Xiao Luo, on the other hand, did not grow taller even after so many years. She was still a silly and adorable existence. However, its battle prowess had increased by quite a bit. Now it could tear apart 7-star pseudo-immortal metal like it was playing around. It could also just barely leave a mark on 8-star pseudo-immortal metal. As soon as they entered the mountain region, they lost their sense of direction. They only felt that there was white fog everywhere. And they couldn't even see their own fingers. Not only their eyes, but even their divine sense and hearing were also blocked. Huaijian took out a small pendant, but as soon as it was taken out, it dispersed the dense fog. It could be seen clearly within a radius of at least 100 feet. This is a keepsake bestowed by Lord Eternal Desolation, he explained to Ling Han and the others. They were just about to set off, yet they all stopped. Little Terror, who was held in bewitching Maiden Rose arms, even bared his teeth, showing his ferocity. I am Huaijian. I have come to pay my respects on the orders of Lord Heng Huang. Huaijian cupped his fists towards the front. So you are Huaijian. A voice traveled over from the front, but it couldn't reach him. The other party was 100 feet away. Though Master has the intention of taking you as a disciple, why have you brought a bunch of irrelevant people here? That person asked again, his tone aggressive. Huaijian said, this person's name is Ba, and he is the number 1 on the elite ranking of the 1000 Academy battle this time. His talent in martial art is astonishing. I know that Lord Eternal Desolation loves to nurture the best of the younger generation. So I have specially brought him here for Lord Eternal Desolation to take a look. Number 1 on the elite ranking? The person opposite him sneered. There are no heirs of us celestial venerables participating in this battle. This is just child's play. And you actually have the face to say this? He paused, and then said, Huaijian, don't think that you can forget everything just because Lord Master has hit you. You should know that you are only one of the 37 disciples that Master has taken. Moreover, you aren't one right now. Huaijian couldn't help but look angry, and said, whether Lord Eternal Desolation is willing to take Ba as a disciple is naturally up to him to decide. Is there a need for you to decide? How dare you? The person opposite him finally showed himself. This was a young man from the demon race. He had 4 horns on his head, and they each occupied a position in the east, west, south and north directions. He was over a foot tall, and was very interesting. Hunyo couldn't help but stare at his horns, clicking her tongue in wonder as she did so. The demon race was displeased by her stare, and couldn't help but shout. What are you? You're in trouble. Hunyo blurted out. Fuck. Killing intent instantly appeared on the demon race's face. His right hand shook, and a battle spear appeared in his hand. It was as long as 6 meters. He held the spear in his hand, and without another word, he stabbed it towards Hunyo. This spear was fast, accurate and ruthless. It carried a terrifying killing intent and might, and was enough to kill an ordinary 9 Lotus elite. This was because he was a 1-leaf 9 Lotus Emperor star, and had the battle prowess of a 2-leaf 9 Lotus Emperor star. Hunyo hadn't moved yet, and Little Terror let out a roar first. He leaped out from bewitching Maiden Rose arms, and bit towards the spear. This was his mistress, and someone attacked him. As a loyal dog that protected the family, he naturally had to be the first to charge out. Speaking of which, this mistress kept drooling as she stared at his legs. In truth, he didn't really want to charge out, but who asked him to be so loyal? With a whoosh, Little Terror bit down on the spear, and refused to let go. The demon race opposite him couldn't help but gape in shock. He was an Emperor star, a 1-leaf 9 Lotus Emperor star. Apart from the ancestral king, only those with battle prowess on the level of 3 leaves could suppress him. But how could a newborn beast cub not be such an existence? However, when his spear landed in this incredibly adorable little beast's mouth, it was as if it had taken root, and didn't move in the slightest. No matter how hard he pulled, it was useless. Hiss, this little beast's strength was too terrifying, wasn't it? Little Terror unleashed its might, and with a leap, the spear was instantly snapped in half by its teeth. The demon race retreated a few steps, his expression filled with shock. One had to realize that this spear was made of 7-star pseudo-divine metal, and was almost as strong as his full-strength defense. Yet, it had still been snapped in half by Little Terror's teeth. How unimaginable was this? Little Terror didn't back down, and once again pounced out, launching a fierce attack at the demon race. The demon race hurriedly parried, but fearing the sharpness of Little Terror's teeth, he actually didn't dare to take them head-on, and could only retreat as he fought. Huaijian couldn't help but be shocked. That demon race was the same as him, also a 1-leaf 9-lotus Emperor star. Although he was a super Emperor star, and the demon race might not be, the demon race had cultivated for much longer than he had at the level of 9 lotus. Thus their battle prowess was actually about the same. In other words, if it were him, perhaps the result would be the same. So this is that battle beast egg? Even though Huaijian had always believed in his own strength, he couldn't help but feel a trace of envy. This egg had been prepared for him, but it had now become Ling Han's battle pet. This thought only flashed in his mind for a moment, and he was once again filled with confidence. As long as he could heal the Dao injuries in his body, his battle prowess would greatly increase, and he would definitely be able to suppress Ling Han. Chapter 2356. What level of cultivation did Feng Hailan have? What was Feng Hailan's level of cultivation? He was a 1-leaf Emperor star, while Ling Han was an 8-lotus 11-leaf Emperor star. Even if he was also an Emperor star, he was still an entire realm away from Feng Hailan. Even if he was an 11-leaf Emperor star, Feng Hailan still had the advantage of an entire realm. Which Emperor star could defeat another Emperor star by an entire realm? Especially someone at 9 lotuses level. Wasn't this clearly robbery? Huaijian was stunned. You're an Emperor star too? How dare you be so brazen and shameless? Senior brother Feng, this is tyrant. I've specially introduced him to Lord Eternal Desolation. His expression darkened. Feng Hailan smiled faintly. If the battle beast had been in Huaijian's hands, he definitely wouldn't have dared to rob it. This was Celestial Sovereign Eternal Desolation's arrangement. Who would dare go against a Celestial Sovereign's will? But Ling Han was different. Even if he really did become Celestial Sovereign Eternal Desolation's disciple, that was a matter for the future. Celestial Sovereign Eternal Desolation had a free-range attitude towards his disciples. If you were strong, you could win what you wanted. Ling Han had stolen this battle beast from Huaijian, so he could naturally take it as well. In the future, if Ling Han had the ability, he could take it back. Of course, he would definitely continue to suppress Ling Han, not giving him a chance to surpass him. Junior brother Huaijian, you still don't know our Eternal Desolation's rules. I don't blame you, but don't interfere in this matter, Feng Hailan said. His tone was a bit heavy, and he was already putting on the airs of a senior brother. At that moment, there was movement behind them. Soon, the mist was pushed aside, and 3 people walked out. Moon and Well, Blood Spear and Ruin Star. They each held a small pendant in their hands that was emitting light and dispersing the mist. Clearly, they had also received Celestial Sovereign Eternal Desolation's favor, and he had given them the key to ascend Mount Tianhuang. Why didn't Ling Han have it? Speaking of Ling Han and Huaijian, Moon and Well and Ruin Star were shocked. You are. Feng Hailan's gaze swept over them. These 3 all held Celestial Sovereign Eternal Desolation's tokens. This meant that he now had 3 more juniors. This meant that the competition was about to intensify. I am Blood Spear. I'm the Ruin Star. I'm Moon in the Well. Moon and Well, and the other 2 announced their names, but all of them had arrogant expressions, without the slightest reverence. This was the pride of a super Emperor star. Feng Hailan's brows furrowed, but he quickly put the matter aside and focused on Ling Han. If you don't dare to fight me, then scram down the mountain. Without Heavenly Lord Heng Huang's keepsake, there was no need for him to be nice to Ling Han at all. Huaijian frowned, thinking that he might have done something bad with his good intentions. Moon and Well, and the other 2 had all received the favor of the Heavenly Lord of Eternal Wilderness, so it was impossible that Ling Han, who was even stronger, did not. That could only mean one thing. Heavenly Lord Eternal Desolation already knew that he had brought Ling Han here, so he couldn't be bothered to show himself again. and give him a keepsake. But now that things had come to this, it was too late for him to regret it. Moon and Well, and the other two did not expect to see Ling Han fighting Heavenly Lord Eternal Desolation's disciple as soon as they arrived. They could not help but be intrigued. However, no matter how highly they regarded Ling Han, they did not think he was a match for Feng Hailan. There was no helping it. The difference in their realms was obvious. Ling Han chuckled, but his expression turned sinister. Since you're looking for a beating, I'll fulfill your wish. Ha 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 ha, what shameless boasting. Feng Hailan was so angry that he laughed. A mere 8 Lotus 11-leaf cultivator dared to say that he wanted to beat him up? Where did he get his courage from? Ling Han extended his right hand and crooked his finger. Bring it on, you're asking for a beating. Feng Hailan roared. His voice was like the birth of a primordial monster, shocking everyone within millions of miles. He attacked brazenly and threw a punch. Billions of meteors came crashing down from the skies, intending to kill Ling Han. Since Ling Han was not from his bloodline, what did it matter if he killed him? Did a Heavenly Lord's disciple need a reason to kill someone? Ling Han's gaze was cold. He bent his legs slightly and sprang forward. In an instant he burst forth with terrifying speed. Bam! 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 The meteors fell one after another, but they were all destroyed by Feng Hailan's punches. Huaijian, Shuige, and the others were shocked. They knew that Ling Han was strong, but no matter how strong he was, there was still a limit. After all, he was only an 8 Lotus 11-leaf cultivator. At most, his combat strength would be at the peak of the 9 Lotus 1-leaf stage. However, Feng Hailan's combat strength was definitely above the 2 Lotus 9 Lotus 2-leaf stage. This was a gap that could not be crossed. However, Ling Han did not care what they were thinking. He swung his fists repeatedly, and the meteors that came crashing down were all destroyed by his punches. He was already in front of Feng Hailan, and his fist was headed straight for his opponent's face. Feng Hailan was shocked and puzzled. He even felt an inexplicable chill. This kind of power was inconceivable even for an imperial star like him. However, he was not stupid enough to take Ling Han's punch. He hastily roared, and his right hand formed a claw as he pecked at Ling Han. Boom! Their hands collided, instantly triggering a terrifying energy storm that swept into the sky like a raging dragon. Moon and Well, and the others widened their eyes. This was because Ling Han was not at a disadvantage in this attack. In fact, he seemed to have the upper hand. No power of the rule. This is pure brute force. But how is that possible? Without the rule, no amount of power can cause any damage. Huaijian pondered for a long time before saying, No, he's still using the rule, but it's a rule that we can't understand. Was there such a rule? Moon and Well, and the others looked at each other. If that was not the case, they would not be able to accept that pure brute force could go up against the 9 Lotus 1-leaf imperial star. It should be noted that even if the ancestral king had his power of the rule reduced, his combat strength would only be at the 6 Lotus level. While they were still in the midst of their shock, Ling Han's furious fists continued to rain down blows upon Feng Hailan. Who did he offend? First it was the 4 wilderness cloud, and now it was Feng Hailan. Did they think he was a pushover? In that case, let's go all out. Huaijian, and the others were about to go crazy. Feng Hailan was actually at a disadvantage. Moreover, it was an absolute disadvantage. He was being suppressed by Ling Han. This kind of combat strength should be at the peak of the 9 Lotus 2-leaf, right? Huaijian gulped. He was a 9 Lotus 1-leaf imperial star, and a super imperial star at that. Even though he had just reached this level, he only had the combat strength of an early stage 9 Lotus 2-leaf imperial star. However, this was his limit. If he wanted to unleash more combat strength, he would have to use his ultimate moves. What about Ling Han? Even if he had been using his ultimate moves, he should not have been this aggressive. He had even said that he did not want to suppress Ling Han with his realm. However, if the two of them were to fight, would he be able to withstand more than 100 of Ling Han's moves? Bam bam bam. Ling Han unleashed his power and closed in on Feng Hailan. Every punch he threw was like countless stars colliding together, causing Feng Hailan to cough up blood. Crack. His fist landed on Feng Hailan's face, forcefully shattering half of his face. His bones were pulverized, and his flesh was a bloody mess. He no longer had a trace of the angel tribe's elegance. Ling Han followed up with a knee arch bam. A muffled sound came from Feng Halen's body. His heart, liver, spleen, and lungs were all blasted apart. Chapter 2357. Feng Hailan screamed in pain. His spirit chi and spirit were greatly weakened. He had long cultivated the body's secret realm. But now that he was beaten up by Ling Han, it was only natural that he was gravely injured. What are you shouting for? Aren't you very stubborn? Ling Han threw him onto the ground, and then stomped down hard on him. There was a cracking sound, and Feng Hailan instantly let out a shrill cry. His left leg had been forcefully broken, and the broken bones were visible red and white. How does it feel to be bullied? Ling Han stomped again, and Feng Halen's right leg was broken as well. His knee caved in, and only some minced meat was left to hold his calf together. Feels good, right? Ling Han smirked. He raised his leg high and aimed at Feng Halen's genitals. Feng Hailan was about to go mad from anxiety. Being injured by an expert like Ling Han would leave behind serious repercussions. For example, if a heavenly venerable one or an ancestral king didn't treat him, he would need at least a few thousand years to recover from his broken bones. If his genitals were crushed, not being able to use his little brother for a few thousand years was a small matter. What was more important was the physical and psychological humiliation. He would live in the shadows for the rest of his life. On the other side, the four-baron cloud was pounced on by Little Terror as well. Little Terror bit his buttocks, causing him to sprawl on the ground in pain. He kept kicking his legs, looking as though he was better off dead than alive. This man and beast, master and servant, both of them were too ferocious. Haha, as expected of the number one expert in the Battle of the Thousand Academies. Impressive. Applause rang out. A young girl from the Devil tribe appeared. Her facial features were exquisite, but when paired with the appearance of a Devil tribe member, she did not conform to Ling Han and the other standards of beauty. However, the ruined star's eyes immediately lit up. He was a genuine Devil tribe member. Ling Han stepped on Feng Hailan, but his gaze shifted to the young girl from the Devil tribe. His eyes narrowed slightly. She was a two-leaf nine lotus realm expert. Zi Shuang. The demon girl pointed at herself. She had an incomparably sexy body, and although she still had a tail, she had a different kind of charm. Junior brother Ba, you can't really be thinking of killing my junior brother here, right? She covered her mouth and laughed lightly, as if she had no intention of saving Feng Hailan and Si Huangyin. Feng Hailan and Si Huangyin, on the other hand, were well aware that the competition between fellow disciples was incredibly intense. This was especially true for those of the same cultivation level. Since they had the same cultivation resources, they would definitely fight to the death. This was also Heavenly Lord Eternal Desolation's intention. Just like raising goo, only the strongest would be able to stand out. Ling Han smiled faintly and said, "This person wants to kill me. Why can't I kill him? This is my junior brother. If you kill him, then I'll have to kill you." Zi Shuang sighed as if it was a pity. This person was interesting. She didn't say she wanted to save Feng Hailan. Instead, she said she wanted to take revenge. It was as if she didn't care about this junior brother of hers at all. However, since they were both of the Eternal Desolation bloodline, she had to at least show some mercy and eliminate the murderer. Moreover, even if I'm not your match, there are still 7 senior brothers and 2 senior sisters here. 7 of them are 3-leaf 9 Lotus Realm cultivators, and 2 of them are ancestral kings. Junior brother Ba, do you still want to kill someone? She stared at Ling Han with her large, glittering eyes. To a demon like her, Ling Han was very handsome. Ling Han's expression was cold. Although his body skills had surpassed his realm, he could at most match a 3-leaf 9 Lotus Realm cultivator. Anything more was just wishful thinking. Forget an ancestral king. Even a 3-leaf 9 Lotus Emperor star could give him trouble. However, he was not someone who was used to being threatened. He exerted some force with his feet, and Feng Hailan instantly flailed his limbs with all his might. His throat was being stepped on by Ling Han, and a terrifying pressure was exerted on him, making him feel as if death was really at hand. Junior brother Ba. Zishuang's expression changed again. She smiled and said, "We're all family from now on. Of course we should be harmonious, don't you think?" A smile slowly spread across Ling Han's face, and he said, "You're right, senior sister." He slowly retracted his foot and whistled softly. Little Terror immediately let go of his throat, then leaped up and scurried to his feet. He hugged his leg like a cute pet trying to please him. Zishuang revealed a wary expression. Not only was Ling Han incredibly powerful, but he was also flexible. He didn't have the stubborn arrogance of an ordinary emperor star. It would be very, very troublesome to make an enemy out of someone like him. That's the wise thing to do. She smiled sweetly. There were a total of 19 Lotus disciples under Celestial Venerable Eternal Wilderness. They were all competitors, but if they fought alone, they could easily be ganged up on. Thus, she also wanted to find an ally. Naturally, Ling Han, who was also from the demon race and was extremely powerful, was a very good candidate. Ling Han also smiled. "Thank you for the compliment, senior sister. Follow me up the mountain." Zishuang didn't even look at Feng Hailan and Si Huangyun. As long as they didn't die, she couldn't be bothered with them. She led the way, her two small buttocks swaying in an alluring manner. Even the angels, sacred beasts, and insects had to admit that this woman's figure was very hot. Needless to say, the ruined star's gaze never left her. It was no wonder he was tempted. There weren't many emperor stars that were worthy of him. It was even more difficult to find a beauty from the demon race. No one paid attention to Feng Hailan and Si Huangyun. After a long while they finally managed to get up. One was covered in bite wounds, while the other had both legs broken, his abdomen torn, and half his head missing. "I swear I won't be human if I don't get revenge. I'll definitely tear this kid to pieces," the two of them said through gritted teeth. After exchanging a glance, they both smiled coldly. Ling Han and the others followed Zishuang up the mountain. After walking for a long time, the fog finally receded, and they all put away their message talismans. Zishuang didn't need to. The Eternal Wilderness bloodline all cultivated special techniques, so they weren't affected by the fog. Otherwise, even the 18 Lotus ancestral kings would feel dizzy. That was because this was a Celestial Venerable's technique. "Come, have some tea first. Master's main body has been cultivating, and he's left a wisp of his consciousness outside. He should be back in a few days." Zishuang smiled as she called out to everyone. This was a living room. It wasn't very luxurious, but it had its own atmosphere. All the furniture in the living room was made of stone. It was shockingly old, and it gave off an ancient feeling. "Serve the tea," Zishuang called out softly. Before long, a servant came over with a tray of tea. Ling Han and the others all looked surprised. It wasn't that this servant was shockingly handsome, or that his cultivation was ridiculously high, but that he was actually a human. A human? A human had actually appeared in the Outlander's territory? This was a man who looked to be in his 30s. He had a submissive expression, and he looked like a loyal servant. Ling Han's heart couldn't help but clench. He never would have thought that he would meet a human here. Moreover, this person seemed to have long since forgotten about the Outlander's hatred, and was extremely servile. Reading on a mobile phone. Chapter 2358. Huh. Why are there scum from a super low-level plane here? Su Xing was the first to ask. Firstly, he was indeed curious, and secondly, he was deliberately chatting with Zishuang. This question answered everyone's doubts, and they all looked towards Zishuang. Oh, Lord Master personally entered that super low-level plane, the celestial realm, and killed countless powerhouses. At the same time, he also captured some and brought them back. These are the descendants of those human powerhouses, Zishuang said lightly. She had clearly long since understood that it was strange. Why raise these scum? Shuigo asked, and he even grinned, revealing a cruel and bloodthirsty expression. Those scum were only worthy of being eaten by him. Zishuang smiled and said, Master wants to use these humans for research. Who knows? They might be able to make us unafraid of that plane's heaven and earth suppression. What? Lord Eternal Desolation actually has this kind of ability? Everyone was shocked. Apart from Ling Han and the others, everyone revealed looks of excitement. The foreign realm was stronger than the celestial realm, but they had been unable to conquer the celestial realm for so long. Firstly, the laws of the two realms were different, so they could not fight for long. Secondly, after they entered the celestial realm, they would be suppressed by the power of heaven and earth in the celestial realm. If they could solve the latter problem, then the powerhouses of the foreign realm would be able to march straight in, and with their superior numbers and quality, they would be able to exterminate most of the living beings in the celestial realm. In this way, the celestial realm would be heavily damaged, and the foreign realm would be able to easily devour the celestial realm. This was the planar war. If they wanted to destroy a plane, then they needed to exterminate all living beings on that plane. Otherwise, even if dozens or hundreds of celestial venerables joined forces, they would not be able to defeat the world itself. It was unknown whether there were stronger celestial venerables in the higher realms who could truly defeat the world. Ling Han's heart was pounding. The foreign realm was really working tirelessly to invade the celestial realm. If Celestial Lord Eternal Desolation really succeeded, it would definitely be the worst news for the celestial realm. Fortunately, the passage between the two realms was blocked, and the energy was as violent as the sea. Even the 18 Lotus Ancestor Kings could not cross it, and celestial venerables would be heavily injured if they tried to cross it. If they were targeted by the world, then they would probably be killed. Therefore, for at least several tens of billions of years, the immortal realms would be safe. Haha, does that super low-level plane think that we'll have to wait tens of billions of years because of the energy storms? The Void Star sneered. If only a few celestial venerables had already attacked them. In a billion years at most, we'll be able to sweep away the energy storms and start the war again. Senior Apprentice Sister Zishuang. How long more before Lord Eternal Desolation succeeds? Moon and Well asked. I don't know either. Zishuang shook her head. However, from the words that Lord Master occasionally revealed, it should only be a matter of a few billion years. Everyone was excited. Compared to the planar wars, which were measured in terms of epochs, billions of years were nothing more than the blink of an eye. Ling Han's heart tightened. He was too optimistic, not expecting the foreign Empyreans to be so enthusiastic about the invasion. That's right, they were also being attacked by the Xian'an plane. If they didn't take down the immortal domain as soon as possible, then they would be finished. The celestial venerables of the immortal region are also working with us to speed up the elimination of the energy storm, Zishuang said. This was an incredibly shocking piece of news. Even Ling Han couldn't help but raise his brows, feeling an urge to curse. Not only did the celestial venerables of the immortal domain not resist, but they actually helped the other side steal from the celestial realm. What did this mean? Hunyo and the other two girls' expressions also changed, but Huaijian and the others didn't seem to be surprised, as if this kind of news was very normal to them. Come on, the betrayal of the celestial venerables of the immortal domain wasn't a secret in the other side. Otherwise, if they heard this kind of news, everyone would probably be shocked. Now the behavior of Huaijian and the others was obviously abnormal, too abnormal. Esteemed guests, please have some tea. The human servant served them fragrant tea one by one, his expression respectful. Ling Han sighed inwardly. This person should have been instilled with the idea of being a servant from birth. Putting aside the fact that he was just serving tea now, even if he was asked to go to the battlefield to kill his fellow celestial realm compatriots, he would definitely do it without hesitation. Senior Apprentice Sister Zishuang, do you have many servants like this here? Shuiga suddenly asked. Many. Zishuang nodded. Then I won't be polite, Shuiga said, and suddenly transformed into his original form. Xiao. He turned into a line of blood and shot into that human's head. That human didn't even make a sound. His legs directly weakened, and he fell down with a loud bang. The difference in cultivation level and strength was too great. Xiao, Shuiga flashed again, and leaped out of that human's head, turning back into human form. He smacked his lips and said, though the celestial realm is backward, the living beings it nurtures are not bad. Moreover, eating their souls and brains can also obtain a sliver of the regulations of that heaven and earth. If the quantity is enough, and the quality is good enough, there is a chance to cultivate the regulations of that heaven and earth. The speed at which he suddenly killed was too fast, and even Ling Han didn't have time to stop him. He really didn't think that Shui Ge would actually be so deranged. To the people of the other side, what difference was there between the living beings of the celestial realm and food? Ho ho! I have no interest in devouring those filthy living beings. Let's wait for Lord Eternal Desolation to create the secret art, and cultivate it before entering the celestial realm, Jing Zhongyue said. At that time, we should also have reached the ancestral king tier. I don't mind, Su Xing said, a sinister expression on his face. Shui Ge was just about to speak pung, his face was heavily punched, and it just happened to hit his mouth. Pooh! He instantly spat out a mouthful of blood, and half of his teeth fell out. He looked at Ling Han in shock, his mouth wide open, and his eyes filled with doubt and anger. Why did you hit me? Why? Did I offend you? Ling Han retracted his fist and calmly said, You suddenly felt that I was annoying, so I punched you. What, you don't like it? Fuck, of course I don't like it. Shui Ge almost roared out, but he forced himself to suppress it. So what if I don't like it? So what if I fight with my life on the line? Can I beat Ling Han? Ling Han was indeed unreasonable, but in this world, there was only strength, and the bigger the fist was the reason. I'll remember it, he said through gritted teeth. Then he gritted his teeth so hard that they made cracking sounds. Ling Han did not care, because after entering the Outlander realm, he would not encounter the people of the Celestial realm. So he would not see the scene of the people of the Outlander realm harming the people of the Celestial realm. This also made him temporarily forget about the cruelty of the creatures of the Outlander realm. But in reality, this was the contempt, hatred, and disdain that was rooted in their bloodline. They thought that the people of the Celestial realm were only their toys and food, and this would never change. At this moment, Ling Han really wanted to blast Shui Ge into smithereens. However, such an action would be too rash. He could not only focus on the small matters, but not the big ones. Killing one Shui Ge would not be able to solve the problems of the Celestial realm. Even if this one died, there would still be 1,000 or 10,000 Shui Ge in the Outlander realm, and they might even be 10 times, 100 times more cruel than Shui Ge. When he became a celestial sovereign, he would turn the Outlander realm upside down. Huai Jian and the others were also very confused. This punch of Ling Han's was too inexplicable. Even Zi Shuang was surprised. Although the internal strife of the Eternal Desolation realm was very intense, it was too strange to attack for no reason at all. Chapter 2360. I heard that there are quite a few disciples who want to become Master's disciples. He looked at Ling Han with a smile, and said, There must be a strange pattern or coincidence. The disciples that Master Feng Jiu has accepted are all extremely powerful. My 9th junior brother is the first of all the disciples to reach the 18 Lotus Ancestral Kings. 19th junior brother caught up from behind. Not only did he become one of the 18 Lotus Ancestor Kings, his battle prowess is also world-shaking. He's one of the best among the Ancestor Kings. Although junior brother 29th has just entered the ranks of the Ancestral Kings, the geniuses of the same generation as him only have eyes for 9 Lotus. Now one of you will definitely become the 39th disciple. I'm a little curious. What a coincidence. Ling Han didn't think much of it. Although there was such a thing as luck in heaven and earth, he wasn't a person of this heaven and earth. How could luck be added to him? No fault is merit. But since Voidwalker had said so, Ling Han smiled and said, I will remember Senior Voidwalker's words and strive to rank 39th. Ji Kong nodded, and then he said, Master is in closed-door cultivation here, and he forbids anyone from approaching it. It's not that we would disturb him. It's just that his strength is too formidable. A single thought from him is capable of obliterating the world. Once you cross this line, you won't be in the safe zone that Master has set up, so I'm standing guard here. Firstly, it's to borrow Master's blessing, and secondly, it's to prevent the new junior brothers and sisters from being careless and accidentally entering this zone. Ling Han nodded and cupped his fists. Thank you for the reminder, senior brother. He was curious. Since the celestial sovereign was so powerful, why would he need to set up a safe zone? So what if he was in seclusion? If he wanted this place to be safe, then it would be watertight. If he wanted this place to be dangerous, then it would be a dangerous place that even the 18 Lotus Ancestor Kings would have a headache over. Something's wrong. Ling Han felt a strong sense of danger in his heart. He wanted to stop Heavenly Sovereign Heng Huang from researching a method to adapt to the energy of the heavens and earth in the immortal realm. And this Heavenly Sovereign's true body had always been in seclusion, researching such a method. Destruction was necessary. There were two methods. The first was to draw all the humans into the Black Tower. Without any materials, how would they be able to research? The second was to catch this old guy by surprise. When he was cultivating in seclusion, he hated being disturbed the most. But a mere 9 Lotus level of strength dares to disturb a heavenly lord? No matter how he thought about it, it was just wishful thinking. It was better to take the first path. Ling Han bade farewell to Ji Kong and did not wander around again. Instead, he returned to his place and waited patiently. A few days later, a wisp of heavenly venerable Heng Huang's divine sense descended. Buzz. Immediately, panic and unease rose in everyone's hearts. It was as if their souls were trembling. Ling Han understood that this was because an Empyrean was in existence that transcended the laws, while everyone else cultivated the laws. Thus, encountering an Empyrean was like a mouse encountering a cat. The two sides were simply not on the same level. He wasn't afraid, because he had once been a ruler of heaven and earth. Although he wasn't a true ruler, he was still a quasi-Empyrean existence. In terms of level, he wasn't weak. In fact, from a certain perspective, he had once been the head of a chicken, while the tail of an Empyrean was the tail of an ox. A thought suddenly rose in his mind. Why couldn't an Empyrean teach an Empyrean? Yes, following an Empyrean, learning from him, and absorbing his aura was indeed helpful in becoming an Empyrean. However, if too much time passed, the might of an Empyrean would be unknowingly carved into one's bones, and one would live under his shadow. Since that was the case, how could one become an Empyrean? Thus, an Empyrean could be close to an Empyrean, but not for too long. Greetings, Master. Greetings, Lord Heng Huang. Everyone bowed. Although Ling Han was displeased, he had to put on an act for now. Thus he bowed together with the three women. Empyrean Heng Huang's divine sense took the form of a demon. Because only holy beasts and the insect tribe needed to take human form, this divine sense took the form of Empyrean Heng Huang's true form. He was very short, even a little hunched. A single horn grew from his head, and his skin was as black as ink. His skin was no different from that of an ordinary demon, crimson like blood. In terms of appearance, he really didn't stand out in the slightest. Celestial kings had extraordinary splendor, but he was very ordinary. So ordinary that people would forget him with a single glance. Only when his gaze swept over did Ling Han realize that his own consciousness actually paused. It was as if time had frozen, and when he woke up, he didn't know how much time had passed. Perhaps it was only an instant, or perhaps it was billions of years. Ling Han even felt that small tower had awakened, and was exuding a strong sense of wariness. The Empyrean treasure tool was actually afraid. I miscalculated. The vitality of this living being should be close to 16,000 points. My improved heaven-deceiving technique is unable to deceive his true form. Thankfully, this is only a spiritual fluctuation of his. Wall's voice sounded. Fuck. Ling Han almost wanted to strangle this guy to death. If he made a mistake, he would lose his life. The activation of the Black Tower required time, and his thoughts also required time. And this bit of time was enough for an Empyrean to kill him hundreds of millions of times. Who would have thought, who would have thought that Wall would actually have a time when he was so unreliable? Wait, the vitality of an Empyrean was 15,000, so what the hell was this close to 16,000? Ling Han used his encrypted divine sense to ask Wall. 15,000 is an Empyrean, and what is 16,000? Great Empyrean? Of course it's also an Empyrean, but an even more powerful Empyrean, Wall said unhurriedly. Wally said unhurriedly. Also, you're a pure life form, so your ability to hide your spiritual waves can't be compared to mine. It's better if you don't talk to me, or else the chances of being discovered will be as high as 57%. Sure enough, just as he finished speaking, he felt Empyrean Hung Huang's gaze move back, and turned to look at Ling Han's face, seeming to be slightly interested before sliding away. You all. Empyrean Hung Huang paused on the faces of Ling Han, Huaijian, Shuige, Moon in the Well, and Ruin Star. You all represent the most outstanding new generation in the recent epoch of this plane. Today, this Empyrean will take you all as his disciples, and I hope that you can improve further and reach a similar height as this Empyrean. Thank you, Master, for your guidance. The five said at the same time. The Empress, Hunyeo, and bewitching Maiden Ro were not qualified to become Empyrean Hung Huang's disciple. They were only Ling Han's dependents. Empyrean Hung Huang nodded. This Empyrean does not like unnecessary formalities. Just kowtow, and you will be my disciples in the future. Disciple pays respect to Lord Master. Ling Han and the others all knelt down, but when Ling Han kowtowed, he said in his mind, "Damn, old man, I kowtow to you today, but you have to kowtow back in the future." Empyrean Hung Huang revealed a smile, and looked at the faces of the five again before saying, Huaijian was the first disciple chosen by this Empyrean, so he is naturally your senior brother, and will be my 37th disciple. Yes, Huaijian nodded respectfully. Shuige, you are the 38th disciple. Yes. Moon in the Well, you are the 39th disciple. Yes. Ruin Star, you are the 40th disciple. Yes. Tyrant. Heavenly Venerable Hung Huang turned to Ling Han and said, You should have been ranked 38th, but you were together with little 37, so I didn't deliberately manifest myself, so I'll take it that you're old. Chapter 2361. Yes. Ling Han also nodded respectfully. He just wanted to feel the aura of an Empyrean, and didn't care whether he was the 39th disciple or not. These are some of the insights I've gained from my recent research. I'll bestow them to you. The Heavenly Lord Eternal Wilderness flicked his fingers. Xiao xiao xiao. 5 rays of light shot out from his hand, and entered the foreheads of Ling Han and the others. The 5 of them hurriedly bowed to express their thanks again. However, Heavenly Lord Hung Huang merely waved his hand, and this wisp of divine sense instantly disappeared. Ling Han examined himself, only to find that there was an additional ball of light in his sea of knowledge. With a light touch, thousands of laws immediately circulated, as if the world itself had materialized. If he comprehended it in this way, then his cultivation would definitely yield twice the result with half the effort. Unfortunately, it was useless against Ling Han. This was because he had the magic cube of origin, which was of great help to his cultivation. However, it was still a treasure. Why? Because it contained Heavenly Lord Eternal Desolation's heaven and earth energy. The reason why an Empyrean was so powerful was because they had jumped out of the scope of the rules. They had touched upon the essence of the world, and could directly use the power of the world. Just now, when Heavenly Lord Eternal Wilderness bestowed the 5 of them, he had unavoidably given some of his power to them. Although it was pitifully small, it was essentially no different. For others, it was simply impossible for them to sense this strength. Even the 18 Lotus Ancestor Kings would find it hard to do so. Only quasi-Empyreans who had touched upon the strength of the world, and were close to comprehending the essence of the world, could sense this. Coincidentally, Ling Han was such an existence. He had once been a quasi-Empyrean, and even if his strength and cultivation realm had fallen, he still had his sensitivity towards the energy of the world. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been able to extract the energy of Suzi. This is Empyrean Eternal Desolation's Tao, Ling Han thought to himself. Only by knowing oneself, and knowing one's enemy, could one emerge victorious in 100 battles. Now that he understood Empyrean Hung Huang's Tao in advance, if the 2 of them were to fight in the future, he would definitely be able to gain the upper hand. The prerequisite was that he had become an Empyrean. Ling Han looked astonished. In fact, he was shocked to the extreme. Within the power of Heavenly Lord Eternal Wilderness, he discovered a few wisps of aura that belonged to the celestial realm. How is that possible? Heavenly Venerable Hung Huang was an expert of the foreign realm, so how could he have extracted the intrinsic power of the celestial realm? It could be said that Celestial Venerable Eternal Wilderness was actually an elite from the celestial realm. However, his power clearly contained the aura of the celestial realm, and it was dominant. The old fellow was researching on how to not be suppressed by the heavens and earth of the immortal realm. Was he already about to succeed? No, not being suppressed by the heaven and earth was one thing, but possessing the power of another plane was another. Even the Xian'an plane had to absorb all the knowledge of the higher planes before sending Wali, and a super expert into this plane to steal the power of heaven and earth from the other plane. Ling Han was incomparably curious. Could it be that Heavenly Venerable Hung Huang had gone to the celestial domain to cultivate, and thus comprehended the essence of the celestial domain? However, the celestial realm's plane level was low, and as soon as a Heavenly Venerable appeared, he would be targeted. Foreign Heavenly Venerables would even be suppressed. This was no laughing matter. Otherwise, when 9 great Heavenly Venerables attacked the celestial realm together, Ling Han did not believe that Heavenly Venerable Origin Born would be ferocious enough to fight against 9 of them alone. It must be the suppression of the immortal region that allowed Heavenly Venerable Original Birth to create such a miracle. However, it was precisely because of this that it was too inconceivable that Heavenly Venerable Eternal Wilderness could cultivate the power of heaven and earth from the celestial realm. Wait, I missed a clue. Ling Han thought of the human slaves on Mount Tianhuang. They were living beings from the celestial realm. Could it be related to Heavenly Venerable Eternal Wilderness cultivating such power? These living beings were too insignificant. Logically speaking, it was impossible for a Heavenly Venerable to cultivate the power of heaven and earth from another plane. However, looking at the current situation, was there a more reasonable guess? I'll discuss this with Wally later. 5 junior brothers and junior sisters, congratulations. Once Heavenly Venerable Eternal Wilderness left, people like Zi Shuang and the others walked up and congratulated Ling Han and the others. Previously, Heavenly Venerable Eternal Wilderness had accepted 36 disciples. Among them, 11 had already completed their apprenticeship. Some were fighting against the invasion of the Xian'an plane. Some were invading the celestial realm, and some were walking between heaven and earth, longing to take the final step and become a Heavenly Venerable. Now there were only 25 disciples here. Among them, as many as 19 were still in 9 Lotus. They were all disciples that Heavenly Venerable Eternal Wilderness had accepted in the past few 100 million years. Previously, Heavenly Venerable Eternal Wilderness had been very cautious in accepting disciples. He did not ask for great talent, but each had their own unique characteristics. It was unlike now, where he only accepted disciples with astonishing talent. These disciples all had their own ulterior motives, especially those at the level of 9 Lotus. Everyone would soon become direct competitors. Although they spoke warmly, there was already the glint of blades and shadow of swords in the dark. For example, Feng Hailan and Si Huangyin were glaring at Ling Han coldly, not concealing their hostility at all. Ling Han was not interested in paying attention to these things. After casually saying a few words to the crowd, he brought the 3 girls back to his residence. Then, he immediately voiced out the suspicions he had in his heart. This naturally shocked the 3 girls, and they began to speculate about Heavenly Venerable Eternal Wilderness's identity. Could he be a Heavenly Venerable who had betrayed the celestial realm? Ling Han asked Wall, but Wall directly said that there was insufficient information and that he could not make any inferences. Ling Han thought for a long time and decided to put this matter aside for now. Instead, he had to save all the slaves here. It was not important whether these people needed Ling Han to save them, because they had been completely brainwashed. Helping them escape the fate of being slaves would instead make them hate him. However, if their existence allowed Heavenly Venerable Eternal Wilderness to cultivate the celestial realm's power of heaven and earth, then no matter what, Ling Han had to take them away. He waited for a few days and quietly gained a complete grasp of the situation on Mount Tianhuang. He knew where the human slaves lived and then waited for Heavenly Venerable Eternal Wilderness's wisp of divine sense to leave. If he did something bad under the eyes of this Heavenly Venerable Eternal Wilderness, he would definitely be caught red-handed. 3 years later, Heavenly Venerable Eternal Wilderness received a message from another Heavenly Venerable and hurried to attend a Heavenly Venerable conference. Ling Han finally found an opportunity. He took away 1/3 of the human slaves, and when he wanted to take a few more, he alarmed an ancestral king, so he could only use the Black Tower to conceal himself and then retreat. The next day, a huge uproar broke out on Mount Tianhuang. Someone actually broke into the Heavenly Venerable realm and stole people. Heavenly Venerable Eternal Wilderness's main body naturally could not be disturbed, and his wisp of divine sense had gone far away. Thus, this matter fell on the 2 ancestral kings here. Originally, everything here was managed by ancestral King Navarre. He had only broken through to 10 lotuses 700 million years ago, and now he was already 12 lotuses. His progress was astonishingly fast, because he was a monarch tier. Even without the guidance of a Heavenly Venerable, he could reach 13 or 14 lotuses on his own. However, because this matter concerned the Eternal Wilderness's dignity, he invited Ji Kong, and the 2 ancestral kings investigated this matter together. This was naturally fruitless. The protective barrier of the mountain was not damaged in the slightest, so they could not understand how this great thief had managed to break in. More importantly, why had this great thief taken away so many human slaves? Chapter 2362. Now that the lockdown was tight, Ling Han naturally wouldn't act again, and instead waited patiently. Not long after, a rumor spread through the mountains. This thief came from the inner circle of the Eternal Desolation, and the target of his attack was Ling Han and the other 4 new disciples. Why did nothing happen before? But something happened when they arrived. Huai Jian and the others didn't bother to argue. What a joke! What did they want those lowly slaves for? Even Shuiga scoffed. He only treated those slaves as snacks, and didn't need to steal them. This kind of rumor naturally had no basis, but why was it spread? Ling Han knew that it must have been thought up by those senior brothers and sisters, with the goal of slandering the 5 of them. The Eternal Desolation had always been fighting with each other. There were so many senior brothers and sisters, how could they fight for favor without some tricks? Ling Han couldn't help but laugh inwardly. They actually guessed it blindly, but these people definitely couldn't guess his true purpose of kidnapping these humans. Because of the 2 ancestral kings guarding, Ling Han didn't have a chance to act, and could only continue to wait. This wait, another 5 years passed. A guest suddenly came to Heaven Desolate Mountain. It was a bug race, but it had turned into a human. Its arms were still in bug race form, covered in black scales. It didn't have hands, but turned into 2 giant pincers that looked like sharp weapons made of immortal gold. So its junior brother Liao Kong under Lord Yellow Springs. Everyone welcomed him in, and introduced him to those who didn't know his identity. Yellow Springs was the title of a Heavenly Venerable. Liao Kong nodded to everyone. Lord Master invites Lord Eternal Desolation over to discuss some matters, and just happened to find that a volcano erupted, flowing with source power of heaven and earth. It will be very beneficial to senior brothers and sisters of 9 Lotus, as well as junior brothers and sisters who are about to break through to 9 Lotus, so he ordered me to take you there. Although the martial art system of the foreign realm and the celestial realm were different, they were similar in some aspects. For example, the celestial realm had advanced from the immortal palace realm to the ascending origin realm, and the foreign realm had advanced from the 8 Lotus realm to the 9 Lotus realm. These were all qualitative changes. The celestial realm had transformed origin power into source power. This was source power, and its quality was far superior to origin power. Why was it said that even if celestial kings did not have the power of regulations, their battle prowess was still comparable to a severing mundane tier? This was because the level of their source power was higher. Otherwise, no matter how powerful they would only be like a burly man waving a piece of paper to slap someone. In the other side, this step was similarly a qualitative change in soul force. The leap from the immortal palace realm to the ascending origin realm could be done slowly, and he could slowly convert his origin power into source power bit by bit. In layman's terms, it was compression. 10,000 or 100 million parts of origin energy could be condensed into 1 part of origin energy. The ratio was different, and the quality of origin energy was also different. The more intense the compression, the better. However, this kind of conversion speed was very slow. If he could borrow the power of heaven and earth, the conversion speed would be much faster. Thus, breaking through to the ascending origin tier could be done in seclusion, or one could go to a mystery realm of heaven and earth. Furthermore, even if he advanced to the ascending origin tier, the process of condensing source power would be very slow. With the help of the mystery realm of heaven and earth, it would be much faster. However, this kind of mystery realm of heaven and earth did not exist just because one wanted to. Instead, the heaven and earth had to erupt with source power, and only cultivators could borrow it. This source power was actually the condensation of regulations. For example, the 9 heavens flame was the materialization of the regulations of heaven and earth, and did not have much to do with the power of heaven and earth. Hearing Kong say this, as long as they were 8 or 9 lotus cultivators, they were all very happy. The 8 lotus cultivators here had all reached the peak stage, and were about to advance to 9 lotus. They just needed the source power of heaven and earth to temper their bodies. Then let's set off immediately, Zishuang and the others said, appearing very anxious. Because there was a time limit for the eruption of source power of heaven and earth. Once they missed it, who knew how many years they would have to wait? For example, the volcano this time had erupted, and a large amount of source power of heaven and earth had surged out. But it did not mean that it would erupt again after a few years. This was a matter of luck. All right, Liao Kong nodded. In fact, he also wanted to go there as soon as possible. Everyone immediately set off. Liao Kong had come under the orders of the Heavenly Venerate, so he was naturally prepared. With a wave of his hand, a great dark river formed out of thin air, and only a small boat was floating on the river. Please board the boat, Liao Kong said, and was the first to jump onto the small boat. One by one, everyone boarded the boat. Instantly, the small boat broke through the waves at an astonishing speed, and the river continued to spread forward. In just one day, the river reached its end, and the small boat stopped. They had already arrived at the foot of a huge mountain, and the mountain was spewing lava. Black flames burned the sky, as if the sky itself was about to melt. This is Golden Cloud Mountain, Zishuang exclaimed. Even if we used the transportation gate to get here, it would take us as long as 3 years. But now, in just one day, they had arrived at their destination. Everyone looked at Liao Kong's hand enviously. The river and small boat had already been stored away. This is a Dharma treasure that my master lent me. I still have to return it to my master later, Liao Kong said with a smile. Indeed, only a heavenly venerate could have such a heaven-defying method. It was too shocking. Everyone, the 2 heavenly venerates treat the citizens of this realm equally, so they do not view this mystery realm as their private property. Thus, if we ascend the mountain, we will encounter other cultivators, Liao Kong said with a serious expression. In order to fight for the source power of heaven and earth, everyone cannot avoid a fight. The 2 heavenly venerates mean that they will not interfere, and we will have to rely on ourselves for everything. Huai Jian and the others all looked proud. Which one of them was not a prodigy? Especially the disciples they had accepted later. At least they had started from the Emperor Star. So would they be afraid of competition? Even if they encountered a 3-leaf 9 lotus elite, they could easily escape if they were no match for him. They would not lose their lives. Then let's go. Everyone was filled with anticipation. Although they might not be able to obtain the mystical power of heaven and earth, after coming to this kind of mystery realm, it was not certain. Almost everyone moved alone. Their resources were limited, so they naturally did their own things. Meanwhile, Ling Han set out towards the mountain with Hunyao and the other 2 girls. Little Terror was still the size of a puppy, and was held in bewitching Maiden Rose arms, looking very adorable. The little guy had already been forced to submit under Ling Han's tyrannical power. This was a stretch of endless mountains, and the volcano that was currently erupting lava was the main peak. It was said that there was a supreme pressure, and only ancestral kings could ascend to the peak. Thus it was impossible to climb to the peak. The source power of heaven and earth gushed out along with the eruption of the volcano. If one could ascend to the peak and occupy the mouth of the volcano, it would be too easy to obtain the source power of heaven and earth. Of course, a heavenly venerate could do it, but they did not, so it was naturally beneath them to do so. If the disciples of heavenly venerates did not even have this bit of competitive awareness, then they should just get lost. The eruption of the volcano was irregular. The lava would sometimes erupt towards the east, and sometimes it would erupt towards the north. Sometimes it would erupt close, and sometimes it would erupt far, so they could forget about squatting down to guard it. Xiao. As the volcano erupted, a huge lava rock drew an arc in the sky, and then fell in the direction of Ling Han and the others. Pung! This was a huge rock, and it was still burning with raging flames. However, it could still be seen that this was a black rock, and it was filled with a feeling of primal chaos. Fuck, a primal chaos source rock. Chapter 2364. According to my conjecture, this should be a kind of substance that leans towards spiritual form, Wally said. He continued to scan the substance that emitted green light. This was the second round. Ling Han was surprised. There are actually things in this world that you don't know about. Of course. Wally, on the other hand, was very humble. I don't know how many planes there are in the origin world. I've only been to a high-level plane. Every plane has its own characteristics, but many of them are similar. Ling Han waved the civet cat in his hand. Can this thing be eaten? He wouldn't go crazy if he ate it, right? Just don't touch this thing, Wally said, pointing at the gray substance. Ling Han cracked a smile. Then let's eat it. They started a fire to roast meat, and ate the civet cat. It was at the 8 lotus level, after all, so its meat was delicious and contained rich energy. It was still slightly beneficial to everyone's cultivation. Finally, Ling Han carefully peeled off the gray substance and wanted to bring it into the Black Tower. But he suddenly discovered that he couldn't enter the Black Tower. It wasn't like the scroll from before that he couldn't enter, but he himself was also rejected outside the door. This thing is very dangerous, Small Tower's voice was heard. It's extremely likely to corrode my consciousness and lead me to destruction. What? Ling Han was truly shocked now. What kind of existence was the Black Tower? A celestial venerable treasure. However, Small Tower was actually afraid of this gray substance, and was unwilling to take it into its body, which was equivalent to taking poison. But what kind of poison could poison a celestial venerable treasure to death? Obviously, Ling Han underestimated the terror of this substance. What exactly is this thing that even Wally doesn't know, and even Small Tower is afraid of it? Ling Han muttered. The entire Gold Cloud Mountain should be this kind of substance, but even for normal martial artists, as long as they didn't touch it for a long time, they wouldn't be affected. Why was that? The quality is extremely high, but because the quantity is not small, the influence has decreased, he guessed. Just as Ling Han was thinking, he discovered that the gray substance was actually evaporating and soon disappeared completely. They can't exist for long after they leave their living bodies, but I can feel that they haven't really disappeared. Instead, they've reintegrated into this world. Ling Han raised his head and looked at the erupting volcano. What is this place? Regardless of where this place was, since he was already here, he would naturally have to properly search for the primal chaos source stone. For it to be in the little pagoda back then, it was clear that it was an extremely good item. They wandered through the mountains, gradually going deeper and deeper. It was so quiet here that even stepping on a leaf would produce a loud sound. Sha sha sha. As they walked, they suddenly stopped. After a short while, a ray of light appeared in front of them. It was a male angel, Feng Hailan. Feng Hailan obviously hadn't expected that he would encounter Ling Han here. A flash of killing intent flashed across his face, but he immediately hid it. With a humph, he swaggered off. A flash of killing intent also flashed across Ling Han's face. If it weren't for the fact that he knew that the divine sense of the two heavenly venerables was here and could sweep over at any time, he would definitely chase after him and blast this guy into pieces. After seeing the cruelty of Shui Ge, Ling Han knew that whether it was the demon tribe, the angel tribe, the holy beast tribe, or the insect tribe, they were all the same. He couldn't think that the angel tribe and the holy beast tribe were kind just because they hadn't attacked the celestial realm. There'll be a chance, Ling Han said in his mind. They continued to walk through the mountains. From time to time, they would encounter violent wild beasts, savages, and insects. No matter what it was, they were all incredibly crazy and only lived to kill. Ling Han and his group were still able to deal with the majority of the enemies. Little Terror was also an incredibly powerful being, and even if they encountered an opponent with 3 leaves of the 9 Lotus tribe, they could still fight for a while. Is there no pinnacle level in the Ascending Origin tier? Ling Han asked Small Tower. The Ascending Origin tier is the transition of the Celestial King tier, and it transforms the origin power in one's body into source power. There are 3 minor tiers: Small Accomplishment, Great Accomplishment, and Consummate. Every time one completes tempering and compression, it represents that one has advanced a minor tier. Small Tower explained in great detail this time. After 3 times, the origin power should have completely transformed into source power and reached the state of consummate. If you don't reach consummate after 3 times, then you'll have to do it again. And if you ingest some rare natural treasure, you might be able to reach consummate in 1 try. Ling Han came to a realization. In other words, the 3 minor tiers of the Ascending Origin tier don't have a clear boundary. In truth, it's just the purity of source power. When it reaches 100%, it'll be perfect. Hee. Small Tower released a laugh. This was its trademark mockery. Ling Han didn't mind. No wonder Ascending Origin tiers couldn't compare to Celestial Kings, no matter how strong they were. Because this tier was only a transition, transforming origin power into source power. In terms of the height of regulations, they were far inferior to Celestial Kings. So no matter what, they couldn't reach or even surpass the level of Celestial Kings. However, as long as I advance into the Ascending Origin tier, and then temper myself with the void energy, I'll have a chance to rival Celestial Kings. He couldn't help but be filled with anticipation. Ascending Origin tier battling Celestial Kings, or even killing Celestial Kings. That would definitely be very shocking, right? Waha, another rock! Hunyo suddenly shouted in excitement. Sure enough, there was another burning rock ahead, but it was already about to be extinguished. Obviously, this flame wouldn't burn forever, and there was a limit. Ling Han extinguished the flame, and then stored it into the Black Tower, not in a hurry to refine it. They continued to walk. In this deep mountain region, there weren't just the few of them who were bold. There were also other elites, such as the disciples of the Yellow Spring Heavenly Venerables line. But this Heavenly Venerable was different from Eternal Desolation Heavenly Venerable. He didn't have the habit of accepting disciples widely, and only had a mere 3. Aside from Liao Kong, the others were actually the Yellow Spring Heavenly Venerable's eldest disciple, second disciple's disciple, or grand disciple. Ling Han and the others battled with wild beasts, and also fought with humans. 2 months' time passed in a flash, and they first retreated from the mountain region to avoid their minds being affected and becoming bloodthirsty and murderous. That kind of substance was something that even Small Tower was wary of. So Ling Han didn't have the confidence to hide in the Black Tower. They came to the outside of the mountain region, and while waiting for the gray substance in their bodies to slowly disappear, they took out Chaos Source Stones and began to cultivate. This time, they obtained a total of 17 Chaos Source Stones, all of different sizes. The largest was as big as a millstone, while the smallest was only the size of a fist. However, size wasn't the only way to judge whether a Chaos Source Stone was good or bad. The purity of the source power within was also important. Some stones were big, but they didn't have much source power, and couldn't even compare to the size of a fist. The volcano has stopped erupting, someone suddenly called out. Ling Han and the others also raised their heads. Indeed, the volcano that had been erupting all along had stopped, and no longer spewed out flames and magma. What replaced it were patches of black clouds that soared into the sky, extremely dense. This naturally caused another wave of looting to enter the mountain, because it was impossible for there to be any more chaos source stones to erupt. Every piece that was picked up meant one less piece. Ling Han didn't enter the mountain again. He checked his body, and there was actually quite a lot of gray substance, which was slightly affecting his emotions. Thankfully, after leaving the mountain region, this substance also slowly decreased, but entering the mountain at this time would be courting death. Chapter 2365. A few months later, the fight on the Gold Cloud Mountain finally came to an end, and everyone dispersed. Liao Kong was responsible for bringing everyone here, but definitely did not have the leisure to bring everyone back. In any case, it was only a few years' journey, so everyone should just move their feet. Ling Han was not in a hurry to leave, but decided to stay for a while. He was very curious about this mountain. What was that gray substance that could make living beings go crazy? And even heavenly venerable treasures were wary of it. Was it also heavenly venerable tear? The gray substance in his body had completely dispersed, so he entered the mountain again, and only left when he felt like he was going crazy. Another 5 months later, Ling Han finally returned to normal. "You're playing with fire," Wally said. "Although this mysterious substance will dissipate, its influence on you is eternal. If you go in a few more times, I'm sure you won't be able to come out." Only now did Ling Han feel a chill run down his spine. He had never thought that this would actually be so dangerous. He thought for a moment, and decided to put this matter aside for now. When he advanced into Celestial King tier, he would go to the mountain peak. He was a curious person, and if he did not clarify this, he would feel uncomfortable. Ling Han, Hu Niu, and the Empress returned to the Heaven Desolation Mountain. On the way, the two women held the Chaos Source Rock and cultivated from time to time. They had already cultivated the grand cosmic infinity body, and could transform themselves into the flow of time, so there was no need to use the time cultivation room. But even if they were all Emperor stars, and had reached the peak stage of the Immortal Palace tier, it was as difficult as ascending to the heavens to transform their first source power. Even Ling Han was the same. This required a long accumulation of time, but how long had they stayed at this level? Cultivating to the late stage required a long accumulation of time, especially for leaping a major tier, which could not be rushed. However, the three of them, including Bewitching Maiden Ro, had all cultivated the time celestial physique, but Bewitching Maiden Ro was slightly weaker. A year had passed in the outside world, but they had already cultivated for 101,000 years. 4 years later, they returned to the Heaven Desolation Mountain. It took a year longer than planned, and that was because they had to stop frequently, which affected their speed. This time, because Ling Han had cultivated Heavenly Lord Eternal Desolation's secret technique, he was not affected by the mist, and easily ascended the mountain. Who would have thought that they weren't the last ones to return? Blood Spear, Huaijian, Moon in the Well, and the others were still on their way. Of the 5 newcomers, only Ling Han and Su Xing had returned. Ling Han did not care about the affairs of others. He continued to cultivate while looking for an opportunity to rescue another wave of humans. 9 days later, Shuegu returned and caused quite a commotion. Not only was he at the 9 Lotus stage, but he was also at the 2 Leaf stage. This was too shocking. How could it be so fast? Wasn't cultivation realm honed bit by bit? It was only later that Ling Han found out that the Blood Spear tribe loved to feast on the blood essence of living beings. Normally they would store it within their bodies. Once they broke through to the 9 Lotus stage, the blood essence would be dissolved and transformed into surging energy that boosted their cultivation. There was only one chance. However, those with inferior talents would only be able to advance from the early stage of the 1 Leaf stage to the middle stage of the 9 Lotus stage. However, Shuegu was extraordinary. He managed to reach the 2 Leaf stage in one go. He was incredibly powerful, no less than expected from a Super Emperor star. Its evolution index was close to 11, and its explosive power was simply too terrifying. The first thing Shuegu did after returning was to challenge Ling Han. He had endured for too long. Previously, he had been slapped in the face by Ling Han for no reason, but no one had spoken up for him, causing him to hold his breath. The reason why he was able to rush to such a high level in one go was also because he had too much hatred in his heart, which had turned into a strong motivation. Otherwise, the eruption of essence blood was incomparably unbearable, and he would not have been able to withstand it long ago. Ling Han thought about it, and agreed to spar with him. The time was set for 10 days later. He was confident that he could break through to the ascending origin tier within 10 days. But even if he reached the small perfection of the ascending origin tier, it would still be very difficult for him to match Shuige. After all, Shuige was also a super emperor star, and his level of heaven-defying was not inferior to his. But he could still draw on the energy of void children, and once the upper limit of the ascending origin tier was opened, what kind of heights could he reach? Consummate ascending origin tier, or even stronger. He was very much looking forward to it. Shuige had no objections to this. 10 days was too short. Even if he used the acceleration of time, it would only be 30 years at most. At most, it would be enough for Ling Han to complete the breakthrough to the 9 Lotus stage. However, compared to him, the difference was too great. One had to know that the explosive power, after advancing to the 9 Lotus stage, was a unique ability of their race. He was certain that he would torture Ling Han until he was crippled. 3 days later, Jing Zhongyue also returned. She had successfully advanced to the 9 Lotus stage, and was in the middle stage of the 9 Lotus One Leaf stage. Although she could not compare to Shuige, it was still very shocking. Clearly, she had also had a shocking opportunity. Another 2 days later, Huaijian returned. His cultivation had also improved greatly, reaching the late stage of the 9 Lotus One Leaf stage. It was said that he had encountered a great opportunity in the Gold Cloud Mountain, and obtained a chaos source rock of astonishing purity. However, none of them could compare to Shuige. Previously, the 5 Super Emperor stars were almost evenly matched, but now, there was a clear difference. Shuige was far ahead of them. Meanwhile, Ling Han, who used to be the strongest, was now the weakest. However, no one dared to underestimate him anymore. After all, this guy's physical skills were heaven-defying. Meanwhile, Ling Han was still cultivating bitterly. He had left his residence, but he was still in Mount Tianhuang. This mountain range was too vast. Inside his body, earth-shattering changes were taking place. He now knew why source power was so difficult to condense. For example, origin power was gaseous, while source power was liquid. What he needed to do was to liquefy the origin power. During this process, the origin power would become millions of times denser, and a single drop of source power would be able to explode with terrifying power. However, it was also incredibly difficult to compress origin power. If he was not careful, he would explode into pieces first. After experiencing hundreds and thousands of failures, Ling Han finally had the confidence to succeed. Rumble! Origin power roared. Naturally, they were unwilling to be compressed and destroyed, and they were very resistant. However, Ling Han did not care. After forcefully suppressing them, portions of origin power were squeezed together, piling up to 100,000 portions. Generally speaking, 10,000 portions of origin power could be compressed into a single drop of source power. However, Ling Han was ambitious. If he compressed 100,000 portions of origin power at the same time, he would be able to take a very large step forward in the ascending origin tier. He compressed it with all his might. Origin power was originally invisible, but under the compression of 100,000 times, it forcibly turned into mist. If he went one step further, the mist could liquefy into water. Ling Han roared in his heart. Wang! The mist completely condensed, and a drop of water quietly formed. Source power condensed. Ascending origin tier. Ling Han's eyes suddenly opened. Instantly, a shocking light shot out, as if it could penetrate heaven and earth. Quang! Thunderclouds gathered, and the heavenly tribulation had arrived. Even though he only condensed the first drop of source power, this step was a qualitative change, allowing him to step into a new world. He gave a long howl and roared at the sky, not fearing the heavenly tribulation. Come! He took out the scroll that could not be opened, used Wall's special technique, and extracted the energy within. Instantly, there was an even more terrifying tribulation might. Ling Han stopped, extracting a bit of power to temper himself, and immediately stopped. Once his ascending origin tier became a heavenly venerable tier tribulation, then he was definitely dead. Phone reading was more refreshing. Chapter 2366. Once he advanced into the ascending origin tier, Ling Han's vitality instantly soared, opening up the space for evolution. Suzy energy tempered his body, and his stamina began to soar. The advancement of one's realm should be very, very slow. It was like a slow fire stewing soup. However, virtual energy was the intrinsic power of the origin world. It far surpassed the height of the rules. Using it to refine a Nine Lotus creature would naturally have an astonishing effect. His stamina began to soar. At first, it was only comparable to the early stage of ascending origin tier, but now it suddenly jumped to the middle stage, and there was no sign of it slowing down. Quang quang quang. The thunderclouds were dense, and lightning struck wildly, turning into multiple lightning giants that blasted at Ling Han. But for Ling Han's physique, this was insignificant. Under the tempering of Suzy energy, Ling Han's indestructible heaven scroll also displayed greater might, increasing the toughness of his physique. As Ling Han battled the heavenly tribulation fiercely, he wandered at the edge of the cliff, continuously absorbing Suzy energy to increase his stamina and physique. A day later, the heavenly tribulation passed, but the thunderclouds did not dissipate, still condensing and dispersing occasionally. This was because Ling Han was still using Suzy energy to strengthen himself. The level of this power was too high. With every passing moment, Ling Han's strength would increase a bit, almost visible to the naked eye. The speed was too fast. Until the time limit of 10 days was up, he finally stopped unsatisfied. He was immersed in the joy of increasing his strength, and now that he stopped, he felt disappointed. My current body technique should surpass the peak stage of ascending origin tier, Ling Han speculated. Ling Han deduced inwardly. According to Wall's life index, I should be a little over 4,300, but I'm still far from 5,000 points. If vitality reached 5,000, then he would be a celestial king. Ling Han walked back, not to his own residence, but directly to the sword transformation peak. This was the highest and steepest mountain in the Heaven Desolation Mountain, and from afar, it looked like a lonely sword piercing the clouds. Ling Han strode forward, his speed getting faster and faster. He didn't use the slightest bit of rule power, but when he took a step forward, a terrifying power naturally burst forth. Space seemed to be forcibly compressed, and he crossed an endless distance with a single step. Pung pung pung. He charged forward without stopping at all, and the mountain rocks in front of him were all shattered into pieces. Ling Han let out a long howl. His voice was like a heavy hammer that shook the rocks in the mountain and caused them to jump up, after which they exploded one by one. He ascended transforming sword peak, and only after speeding for a good while did he slow down his pace, strolling like a normal person. After more than an hour, Ling Han arrived at the top of the mountain. There was a huge platform there. Originally, there was a sharp point here, but it had been cut off. It was probably done on purpose, so that it could be used in battle. There were already many people standing around the platform. The Empress's daughters, Little Terror was still in bewitching Maiden Rose arms, Huaijian, Moon in the Well, Zishuang, and so on. Basically all the disciples at Nine Lotus's level had arrived. Shuige was eager for revenge, so he naturally arrived early. He still had the appearance of that bald man, his hands behind his back. As the mountain breeze blew, his clothes made a flapping sound. "You came too late," he said coldly. Ling Han cracked a smile. "So eager to get beaten up?" "Haha." Shuige laughed dryly, but there was no humor in it. "Do you still not know what cultivation level I am at now?" A lotus bloomed between his brows. It had 9 petals and 2 leaves, and was as black as ink. "I am 9 Lotus 2 Leaf, what about you?" After confirming that Shuiji's cultivation level was really 9 Lotus 2 Leaf, people like Feng Hailan and Si Huangyan all had solemn expressions. In terms of cultivation level, they had already been surpassed by this little junior brother. Ling Han smiled faintly. Similarly, a lotus appeared between his brows. It had 9 petals but only 1 leaf. Moreover, this leaf was very blurry, as if it had not formed yet. Huai Jian and the others naturally knew that Ling Han had indeed improved and entered 9 Lotus. However, his cultivation level was only at the early stage of 9 Lotus 1 leaf. In fact, it was only at the early stage of the early stage. The difference in cultivation level was obvious. Back then, they had been neck and neck, but now Xueji's lead was extremely obvious. I can still beat you up, Ling Han said. How arrogant. Xuege sneered. He knew that Ling Han's physical skills were shocking, reaching the peak of 9 Lotus 2 leaf, or even the early stage of 9 Lotus 3 leaf. However, he was a super emperor star, and his battle prowess was at the late stage, or even peak of 9 Lotus 3 leaf. Tyrant, you were too arrogant before. I will take back everything you owe me. Xiao. He charged forward as fast as lightning. Ling Han was calm, as he casually threw out punches. Pung pung pung. He did not seem to be in a hurry, but every punch perfectly blocked Xueji's attacks. He was not at a disadvantage at all. What? Everyone's eyes widened as they stared at him. How is this possible? They were both super emperor stars. As long as one of them had a slight advantage in cultivation level, they would definitely win the battle. Ling Han let out a long roar. His fists were wrapped in lightning. This was the result of him combining his rule power with his physical skills, exploding with even more terrifying destructive power. His movements were bold, and the black lotus between his brows swayed as if it had come to life. This time, Ling Han had no interest in playing around with Xuege. He went all out from the start, completely suppressing Xuege. Everyone was speechless. Ling Han's strength was inconceivable to them. He had only just entered 9 Lotus, but his battle prowess was already at the peak of 9 Lotus 3 leaf. In fact, he was even slightly stronger than that. Once he reached 9 Lotus 3 leaf, would he be able to fight even an ancestral king? Xuege roared in anger. His face was filled with disbelief. He had suddenly made such a shocking improvement, but he was still no match for Ling Han. Moreover, he had been full of confidence that he could easily win and vent his anger. Who would have thought that things would turn out the opposite of what he had hoped for? Xuege reverted to his original form, which was a blood bug that was less than a foot long. Xiao 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 xiao. It flew at an astonishing speed, trying to break through the limits of Ling Han's vision. However, this was a complete waste of effort. Ling Han was now fighting with his physical skills. He did not need to use his rule power at all. This allowed his attack speed to be slightly faster than others in the same realm. Although it was only a little for an emperor star, this was not a small difference. Bang! Ling Han's fist landed on the bloodbug's body. Although the area of impact was small, the power of his fist was too domineering. The bloodbug was blasted into a bloody mist, and Xuege was in so much pain that he sent out a powerful divine will ripple. Ling Han had the upper hand. Who asked this guy to provoke him? If this wasn't Mount Tianhuang, he would have killed the stinky bug. Enough, enough. Everyone hurriedly went up to mediate. Ling Han threw a few more punches before finally stopping. After mediating the fight, everyone looked at Ling Han in a completely different light. This was a formidable opponent that they could not avoid. With Ling Han around, a large portion of their cultivation resources would definitely be taken away. Zi Shuang, on the other hand, was filled with regret. If she had known this would happen, she would have formed an alliance with Ling Han. Now that she brought up this matter again, it was obvious that Ling Han was strong and she was weak. She would definitely be the one at a disadvantage when it came to negotiating terms. Chapter 2368. Fuck, so serious? Ling Han smiled bitterly and said, Senior, I've only just advanced into the ascending origin tier, and my shoulders are still very tender. I'm afraid I can't bear such a heavy responsibility. Heavenly Venerable Wu Le shook his head. Young man, you still don't know the pros and cons of this. He sighed and continued. A dozen epochs ago the foreign realm invaded. This Heavenly Venerable, 9-5 sealed emotion, and Blue Fire fought against the foreign Heavenly Venerables. But in the end, those 3 selfish guys were actually persuaded by the foreign realm, and joined forces with them in order to transcend. What transcend? Ling Han was curious. Wu Le was speechless. What kind of situation was this? and this brat was actually concerned about such a trivial matter. However, Ling Han looked like a curious baby, so he knew that it was best to satisfy this guy's curiosity. Otherwise, he might not be able to focus on anything else. First, do you know how heavenly venerables surpass the regulations? He asked. This was a very big question, and probably only a handful of people in the whole world could answer it. However, Ling Han was one of them, because he was once the ruler of heaven and earth. He also obtained Wall's model and formula, and knew how to extract the power of heaven and earth. Extract the intrinsic power of heaven and earth to nourish oneself, turning it into a source of power, and not using regulations, Ling Han answered. Heavenly Venerable Wu Lu appeared slightly surprised. Though he asked, he didn't think a mere ascending origin tier could answer. He paused slightly, and then said, though your understanding is not completely correct, it's not far off. However, every world has a unique power. This is the prerequisite for a plane to be born. And when a Heavenly Venerable achieves Tao, what they can grasp is definitely this unique power. Once they leave this world, their power will slowly dry up, and they will fall from the position of a Heavenly Venerable. Ling Han was surprised. This was something Wall hadn't told him before. He nodded. This is like a normal person. Without the supplement of food, their body will slowly weaken. This analogy is very vivid. Heavenly Venerable Wu Lu nodded. However, Heavenly Venerables are too powerful, and this process will be endlessly long. However, no matter how long, as long as they still rely on this power, it is unavoidable. An Empyrean is like a tree that needs to take root on its own surface. It's closely related. Ling Han was puzzled. Since that's the case, shouldn't the 9-5 Celestial Sovereign and the others be protecting the immortal region? If the celestial realm was destroyed, then the unique power of the celestial realm would disappear. How would the three celestial lords, 9-5, Feng Qing and Qing Hu be able to roam the world? Although Heavenly Venerables are synonymous with the strongest, Heavenly Venerables also have differences in strength and levels, said Heavenly Venerables leisurely. Ling Han knew this, because a Heavenly Venerate's life index should be 15,000 points. However, Heavenly Venerate Eternal Desolation's life index was close to 16,000 points, which made Vale feel terrified. Dare I ask, Senior, how many levels are there in the Empyrean realm? Heavenly Venerable Joyless shook his head. I don't know either. Ling Han couldn't help being speechless, only feeling that this Empyrean was quite amusing. This Empyrean has only been to two planes, the immortal region and the foreign realm. However, according to this Empyrean's knowledge, there are many other planes with countless powerful existences, said Heavenly Venerable Joyless. The following are all my guesses. Grasping a unique power should be the first step to becoming a Heavenly Venerable. However, apart from this power, there are other powers in the world. These are the foundations that form the entire world. That unique power can only be said to be a special characteristic of the world. Grasping another type of basic power should be the second step to becoming a Heavenly Venerable. Once one reaches the second step, a Heavenly Venerable can truly transcend and no longer be bound to their original plane. They can be high and mighty in any plane. Ling Han nodded. Apart from the unique power, all other powers were universal. In that case, they could naturally go to a plane and extract the power of the heaven and earth of that plane. They wouldn't have to worry about exhausting it one day. The agreement between 9-5 and the foreign realm is that when the immortal region's plane is devoured, those Heavenly Venerables will extract the power of the immortal region's core together, said Heavenly Venerable Joyless. There are only two possibilities to absorb such power. First, when the world has just been created, everything is still in its initial state, and this power will be exposed to the outside world. However, when the world has just been created, no living being has reached the level of a Heavenly Venerable, so it is naturally impossible to do so. Second, when a plane is destroyed, Ling Han's body trembled. Those three Heavenly Venerables didn't hesitate to destroy the entire immortal region for their own transcendence. Heavenly Venerable Joyless sighed. Back then, this Empyrean parted ways with them. Because of this, our paths are different, and we cannot work together. It wasn't just him. Heavenly Venerable Fate-born, had also faced off against the foreign realm heavenly venerables alone. In the end, he had no choice but to merge with the Tao and destroy the connection point between the two worlds. Otherwise, the immortal region would have long since ceased to exist. Ling Han's heart stirred. Then now, heavenly venerable eternal desolation is going to take another step and become a second step heavenly venerable. This old fellow's vitality was close to 16,000 points. Once he reached it, wouldn't he become a second step heavenly venerable? Heavenly Venerable Joyless shook his head. That is impossible. However, if he can completely refine me, then he will be able to obtain the unique power of the immortal region. He will be able to march straight into the immortal region and go on a killing spree. The strength of a plane wasn't supported by one or two powerhouses, but by countless living beings. If the foreign realm wanted to devour the immortal region, it was very simple. They just had to kill most of the living beings. Then, the world would be heavily injured, and it would become extremely weak. Then, it would be easily devoured and fused. If heavenly venerable eternal desolation wasn't suppressed by the immortal region's power of heaven and earth, or at least not so severely, then he would be able to go on a killing spree. In any case, those three from the immortal region wouldn't stop him. Just him alone would be enough to kill most of the immortal region. When that time came, it would be the day of the immortal region's destruction. Heavenly Venerable Joyless' previous words were so severe. Clearly, he wasn't exaggerating on purpose. However, Ling Han was shocked. He said, "Senior is going to be refined by Heavenly Venerable Eternal Desolation?" Heavenly Venerable Joyless nodded. Back then, my original body fought against many and risked his life to shatter the connection point between the two realms. He succeeded, but my original body was also heavily injured and captured by the foreign realm. Eternal Desolation is one of the top existences among the foreign realm's heavenly venerables. He has great ambition and great wisdom. He wants to refine my original body and obtain the heaven and earth power within my body. If he succeeds, he will be able to cultivate the first step to perfection, and he won't have to fear the immortal region's suppression. Ling Han nodded. After grasping the immortal region's unique power, Heavenly Venerable Eternal Desolation would be equivalent to someone from the immortal region. Although Heavenly Venerables would still be targeted by the world, the situation was completely different from an invasion by a foreign realm's Heavenly Venerable. Those who can become Heavenly Venerables are all peerless geniuses and supreme powerhouses. Eternal Desolation wants to refine my original body, but this is a double-edged sword. He can also be refined by my original body, said Heavenly Venerable Joyless. However, under the suppression of this plane, my original body can only barely protect myself and prevent eternal desolation from succeeding. But after resisting for so long, my original body's power is already becoming weaker and weaker. I can't hold on much longer. This was because Heavenly Venerable Joyless had only taken the first step. After leaving the immortal region, he could no longer extract that unique power. He was definitely becoming weaker and weaker, especially when he had to fight against a powerhouse like Heavenly Venerable Eternal Desolation. Chapter 2369. It could be said that it was already a miracle that Heavenly Venerable Wu Le could persist until now. It had already been a dozen epochs. Ling Han was filled with admiration and bowed to Heavenly Venerable Wu Le. Senior's integrity is brilliant. I admire you. If it weren't for Heavenly Venerable Wu Li's sacrifice a dozen epochs ago, would he still be where he was now? To say nothing of him, even the Heavenly Venerable born fate couldn't possibly appear. History had already been rewritten. Heavenly Venerable Wu Li's expression was solemn. I can't persist for long, so you must return to the celestial realm immediately and ask a ninth heaven celestial king to interfere with eternal desolation. With my cooperation, we should be able to foil his scheme. Ling Han couldn't help but grimace. I can't return to the celestial realm because the connection point between the two realms is now filled with energy storms. What? Heavenly Venerable Wu Le couldn't help but exclaim. Ling Han added the details of his escape from the celestial realm. Previously, he only said that he was forced to flee, but didn't mention the process of his escape. Heavenly Venerable Wu Lu was speechless. Ling Han was only in the ascending origin tier. And even if Heavenly Venerable Eternal Desolation was completely unguarded, Ling Han couldn't possibly get within 300 meters of him. He would have long been obliterated by the terrifying power of a Heavenly Venerable. Could it be that this was the only way? He was only a spiritual mark, and didn't have any power at all. And this was something he could barely pull out while fighting against Heavenly Venerable Eternal Desolation with his full strength, and could only manifest once in a while. He just happened to see the scene of Ling Han abducting human slaves, and thus became curious about him. He observed carefully, and when he discovered Ling Han's actions the second time, he took the risk and came out to test him. If Heavenly Venerable Eternal Desolation knew of this, he would definitely suffer an even stronger suppression, and it would be impossible for him to even split out a sliver of his divine sense. But Ling Han couldn't return to the celestial realm, and his divine sense had no battle prowess. So wouldn't that mean he couldn't do anything? Even as a Heavenly Venerable, he couldn't help but feel a sense of despair. Ling Han gritted his teeth and said, "I might have a way." He decided to risk it, and use the last of the Black Tower's power. Otherwise, if the immortal domain was destroyed, he and the girls would become rootless duckweeds, without any kin to turn to. After spoiling Emperor Hung Huang's plans, the old man was just putting up a smokescreen. What research that allowed the people of the alien realm to be unafraid of the celestial realm's power of heaven and earth? In reality, it was just him. At that time, when he entered the celestial territory alone, he would definitely be able to obtain benefits that other celestial venerables could not imagine. Ling Han believed that only when it came to the matter of invading the immortal realms did all the Grand Empyreans agree. But to say that they loved each other? Even if you beat Ling Han to death, he wouldn't believe it. It was simply the greatest joke in the world. This was where the greater good lay. Ling Han made a firm decision. "You, Heavenly Venerable Wu Lu," shook his head. It was not that he was underestimating Ling Han, but what could an ascending origin tier do? Junior has an Empyrean treasure. When I activate it, I can display the strength of a quasi-Empyrean. Ling Han revealed his trump card. Heavenly Venerable Wu Lu was surprised. "Kid, you actually have such fortune." An Empyrean treasure tool added with the divine demon sword that was still a celestial tool. Who knew? There might be 2 Empyrean treasure tools in the future. He began to consider, and only nodded after a while. This matter might be feasible. We have to make a good plan. The old and the young did not begin immediately, because Heavenly Venerable Wu Li's divine sense could not be visible for too long. If Heavenly Venerable Hung Huang discovered that he still had a sliver of autonomous ability, then the plan would fall through. And Ling Han could not stay here forever. The matter of a large number of humans disappearing again was about to be exposed, so he had to hurry back to his residence. However, he now also knew that the existence of these humans would not affect Heavenly Venerable Hung Huang in any way. He was only using these humans as a cover, and his intention was to conceal the existence of Heavenly Venerable Wu Lu. Presumably, when Wu Lu was injured, Heavenly Venerable Hung Huang just happened to pick up his corpse, and did not let the other Heavenly Venerables of the foreign realm know. Otherwise, a Heavenly Venerable corpse would definitely cause the Heavenly Venerables to fight over it. Even if Heavenly Venerable Hung Huang was stronger, he would at most be able to snatch a bit more, and obtain a leg, an arm, or something like that. Ling Han returned to his residence, and did not tell the 3 women about this matter, so that they would not worry. He only told them to be prepared, and that he would leave this place at any time. Of course, there was also Wally. The knowledge that this guy grasped was too useful. A large number of human slaves disappeared again, and this naturally caused another uproar in the Heaven Desolate Mountains. Where did this madman come from? To actually come to the Heaven Desolate Mountains to behave atrociously twice. The 2 ancestral kings conducted a thorough search, and even every Heavenly Venerable disciple could not escape suspicion. They demanded that they hand over their spatial god tools for investigation. However, Ling Han had the Black Tower, and as long as it was not a Heavenly Venerable, they would not come out. So he easily muddled through. Now the entire Heaven Desolate Mountains once again entered a state of martial law. The two ancestral kings both held their breaths, and even had the intention of inviting a few of the 18 Lotus's senior and junior brothers back to investigate this matter. Ling Han's emotions were calm. In any case, he would not stay here for long, and once he used the Black Tower, he would definitely kill a few Emperor stars of the foreign realm, such as Shuige. Killing humans in front of him caused Ling Han's killing intent to boil. Another dozen or so days later, Heavenly Venerable Wu Le finally appeared again, and began to discuss with Ling Han. Mainly, he said that he would arrange the details of Ling Han's operation, and where he would go after he succeeded. Ling Han planned to go to the Xian'anai Plain, because there was no turning back. However, Heavenly Venerable Wu Le shook his head. I am already at the end of my rope. After I escape, I will send you back to the celestial realm. The energy storm will certainly cause serious damage to me, but I do not care anymore. Senior. Ling Han's expression changed. Heavenly Venerable Wu Li's stance was that he intended to follow in the footsteps of Heavenly Venerable Yuansheng, merging with the Tao and destroying the connection point between the two realms, giving the celestial realm more time. There is no need to say more. I have made up my mind, Heavenly Venerable Wu Le said resolutely. Ling Han only had the right to bow to him respectfully. The older generation of Heavenly Venerables did not only have selfish people like Jiu Wu and Feng Qing, but also people of noble character and unquestionable integrity like Wu Le and Yuan Sheng. Brat, you can do it too. Heavenly Venerable Wu Le looked at Ling Han with a smile. He admired Ling Han very much. How many people like him could survive so well after escaping to the foreign realm alone? The two of them appreciated each other, though their cultivation levels were as different as heaven and earth, and their ages were the same. They became firm comrades because of their common beliefs. After discussing all the details, Ling Han made the final preparations. He put the three women and Little Terror into the Black Tower, and made Wally turn into a pendant and hang it on his body. He prepared to move the next night. There was a difference of day and night in the Heaven Desolate Mountain. That was the method of Heavenly Venerables, but the day was 3 days long, and the night was only 1. The day passed quickly, and Ling Han moved out. This time he did not hide. A sliver of Heavenly Venerable Hung Huang's divine sense was still wandering in some corner, and his main body was refining Heavenly Venerable Wu Le with all his might, definitely not paying attention to the outside world. As for the rest, he only needed to use the power of the Black Tower to suppress them. Tyrant, what are you doing outside so late at night? With a furious rebuke, Feng Hailan appeared. He looked at Ling Han coldly. Could it be that you are that great thief? The latter sentence was naturally him deliberately slandering Ling Han. Ling Han broke into a smile. That's right, that's me. Chapter 2370. Feng Hailan was stunned. He didn't expect Ling Han to admit it. He snorted and said, "This matter involves the honor of our sect, yet you're still acting so mischievously. You have no respect for the dignity of the eternal desolate bloodline. I will definitely report this to my 2 senior apprentice brothers." He absolutely did not believe that Ling Han was the great bandit who had kidnapped people, because this would not benefit Ling Han in the slightest. Ling Han touched his chin and said with a smile, "Why is it that no one believes me when I tell the truth? Alright, what about now?" He revealed his true colors. Why you? Feng Hailan's expression flickered. You're that human. Many Empyreans joined hands to issue a warrant for Ling Han. This shook the entire foreign realm. But no matter how much they searched, they couldn't find Ling Han. But who would have thought that this guy would be so high profile that he actually snuck into an Empyrean sect? How dare you? Feng Hailan shouted. Now he believed that Ling Han was the thief who had kidnapped the girl. Is it big? Ling Han smiled. His figure moved, and he was already charging towards Feng Hailan. Boom! He punched out, and it was as if a mountain was collapsing. Feng Hailan didn't dare to take it head-on. Back then, he wasn't a match for Ling Han. Now that Ling Han had improved, he was even less of a match for him. He hurriedly opened his mouth and let out a long whistle, sending out a distress signal. Ling Han opened and closed his fists. He had already unleashed his Wrath Fist. His terrifying physical strength circulated, and something that transcended the rules was displaying its might. Although it was just a little, it was enough to increase his destructive power to another level. In just a few moves, Feng Hailan was already in a precarious situation. He had no choice but to ignite his blood essence. Otherwise, he could die at any moment. He was shocked, angry, and afraid. This was the heaven-barren mountain, the Taoist right of an Empyrean. But a puny human was acting violently. So what if Ling Han's body was torn to pieces? This would be the eternal shame of the eternal desolation bloodline. Xiao, 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 someone was already flying over. It was the desolate cloud. When he saw that Feng Hailan was fighting Ling Han, he was stunned. Why is there a human here? Was he a former slave? This was not impossible. Although his memory was extremely good. Did he need to remember the looks of lowly slaves? What are you waiting for? Feng Hailan yelled. His wings had shrunk, and in just a few minutes, he had aged dozens of years. Wrinkles had appeared on his smooth forehead. Even though the Eternal Desolation sect's disciples were all competitors, the Four Desolation Cloud did not dare to not act. Otherwise, if they were to be investigated in the future, it would be too big of an accusation. Who is he? Cloud Sihuang asked in shock as he joined the fray. How could a ridiculously powerful human appear here? Tyrant! Feng Hailan gritted his teeth. What? Sihuang Yin was given a huge fright. This fellow was truly audacious. A mere human actually dared to run over to a heavenly sovereign's dojo and become a disciple. More importantly, he had actually deceived a heavenly venerate, even though it was only a divine sense. What? This scum is tyrant. Another expert rushed over. This time, it was Shuege. He glared at Ling Han, killing intent boiling in his eyes. He finally understood why Ling Han had repeatedly slapped him in the face for no reason at all. It turned out that Ling Han was a human, and he naturally would not tolerate him eating his own kind. Ha 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 ha. He suddenly began to laugh cruelly. This was great, he could finally take his revenge. I'm going to eat your brains. This person is called Ling Han. He's a wanted criminal by the various heavenly venerates. Zishuang appeared and swept her gaze over Ling Han, her eyes filled with shock. She had originally wanted to form an alliance with Ling Han, but now that Ling Han had revealed his true appearance, she was naturally shocked beyond belief. When they heard this, Cloud Sihuang and Shuege both frowned. They hadn't expected Ling Han to be so ferocious that several heavenly venerates had taken note of him. Capture him, and wash away the humiliation of our eternal desolation bloodline. Shuege roared, and also joined the battle. Ling Han cracked a smile, but his eyes were sinister as he said, Are all of you here to die? Mere humans. Shuege sneered. He exploded with the power unique to his race. Endless bloody light spread out, and the regulations of darkness spread out, filled with a bloody slaughter. Limitless stormy cloud. Cloud Sihuang also roared, exploding with power. Feng Hailan, on the other hand, had no way to explode. He had even burned his blood essence, and was already at the end of his rope. Ling Han smirked coldly, and with a shake of his right hand, the divine demon sword appeared. Shwa shwa, shwa, a cold light illuminated the sky. He was too strong now, and added with a god tool like the divine demon sword, he was naturally invincible. Pooh, Shuege was the first to suffer, and was cut in two by the divine demon sword. This was because Ling Han had targeted him, and saw him as the first target to be killed. Shuege screamed in pain. He tried to put the two halves of his body together, but the divine demon sword was too domineering. Even if he pulled the two halves together, it was useless. Not only that, but he was also continuously losing blood. This loss of blood wouldn't kill an elite of the Nine Lotus sect, but if he lost too much, his power would be greatly reduced, and his cultivation level might even regress. Ling Han attacked fiercely, wanting to deal a few more blows and completely destroy this stinking bug. How dare you? Zishuang roared, also joining the battle. At this time, more people were rushing over. Huai Jian, Su Xing, Moon in the Well, and the others were all shocked when they found out that this human was Ba. And when they found out that he was the person wanted by the Celestial Venerable, they were even more shocked. Ling Han held a sword in his right hand, and a fist in his left. As the divine sword swept out, no one could match it. His rage fist was also filled with dominance, and even Zi Shuang didn't dare to take it head-on. It took 2 or 3 people to block it. Kill. Moon in the Well and Huai Jian also joined the battle. They definitely wouldn't let Ling Han have his way. Finally, the Navarre ancestral king also appeared. His gaze swept over, and instantly, the sky was torn apart as if the universe was about to collapse. The ancestral king was too powerful, on the same level as the regulations themselves. As long as you used the regulations, you couldn't match the ancestral king. This was a suppression of a higher level. Why aren't you giving up? The Navarre celestial king reached out, grabbing at Ling Han. Small tower. Ling Han called out in his mind. Instantly, an indescribable mighty force burst forth from within Ling Han's body. Then the color of the heavens and earth immediately changed. There were dense thunderclouds, as if a great calamity was about to descend. This was because the Black Tower was showing its might. This was a power that belonged to the celestial realm, and couldn't be allowed to exist in this plane. Pung! Ling Han pressed down with a palm, and the Navarre celestial king was instantly flattened. When he raised his hand, he saw that the powerful existence had already become a pile of blood and flesh. This was an ancestral king. However, Ling Han didn't even look at it. The Black Tower's power was limited, and he had to finish what he had to do as soon as possible. Pung pung pung. He hadn't deliberately targeted the Black Tower, but under the suppression of his aura, the blood dagger directly exploded. Under the Black Tower's might, Ling Han had the power of a pseudo-heavenly venerable. Even most ninth heaven celestial kings wouldn't be able to withstand 10 moves against him, much less a mere 9 lotus, who was heavily injured. Everyone was shocked. In the blink of an eye, an ancestral king and an imperial star had died at Ling Han's hands. They couldn't even react. No wonder Ling Han was wanted by the celestial venerables. Chapter 2372. An Empyrean transcended the rules. What kind of lofty existence was that? Everyone who could become an Empyrean was a genius among geniuses. Who was weaker than who? Even though Heavenly Venerable Wu Lu was still in a weakened state, he was still one step ahead, and was not someone that Heavenly Venerable Eternal Desolation could catch up to. Boom! He rushed into the frenzy of energy, and instantly disappeared. Heavenly Lord Hung Huang instantly stopped in his tracks. He could charge in, but he would definitely be severely injured. Moreover, the level of the celestial realm was lower, and the power that targeted him would be even stronger. If he were to be severely injured, he would definitely be killed. He roared angrily towards the heavens, his voice rumbling, ringing through the entire foreign realm. It immediately drew out Empyreans one after another, all of them displaying their thoughts here. Leaving aside Heavenly Venerable Eternal Desolation, after Heavenly Venerable Joyless charged into the berserk energy, he grabbed onto Ling Han with one hand and protected him with his supreme strength. Meanwhile, he himself was in a heroic mood as he faced the berserk energy. He had been imprisoned for over a dozen epochs, and had even almost been refined, so he would naturally rather die in battle. He spat out blood again and again. An Empyrean was indeed above the rules, but at the very least, a first-step Empyrean was not enough to resist heaven and earth. Under the violent impact of the energy, his entire body was bathed in blood, and his bones were broken one after another. However, this celestial's battle intent blazed even higher. A conviction supported him. Even if he died, he had to send Ling Han safely back to the celestial realm. In his opinion, this was Immortal Domain's hope. Ling Han was the only one who could return from the foreign lands unscathed. If Ling Han could become an Empyrean, he might become the strongest Empyrean. He burst forth with all his strength, and passed through the heavy storm. The power of an Empyrean rushed into the heavens. He roared again and again, full of lofty sentiments. His fists continuously brandished about. He was almost unmatched. Endless brilliance erupted from his body, illuminating the ages. As he punched out, even the energy storm was blasted apart, revealing the void and even the river of time. This was an Empyrean, one that stood above the rules, infinitely close to the world itself. Hong! He rushed out of the energy storm, and stood proudly under the sky. My true body has returned. He laughed boldly and took a deep breath. Boundless energy of heaven and earth transformed into a dragon visible to the naked eye, pouring into his body. He was originally riddled with injuries, but under the powerful infusion of heaven and earth power, his injuries actually showed signs of slowly recovering. But at this moment, dense thunder clouds rumbled towards Empyrean Joyless. This lightning had terrifying power, and it actually caused Empyrean Joyless injuries to stop recovering. Heaven's envy Empyreans seized the power of heaven and earth, transcending the rules. They were no longer under the control of heaven and earth, and were also abandoned by heaven and earth. Thus, if they appeared, they would be targeted by heaven and earth. And if they attacked, the consequences would be even more serious. He wanted to recover from his injuries, especially such severe injuries of the great Tao. Is next to impossible. Suddenly, the supply of heaven and earth power stopped. Empyrean Joyless frowned. If he was still at his peak, he wouldn't be afraid of the heaven and earth stopping him. He could forcefully plunder it. After all, the heaven and earth couldn't interfere directly. He could only do so through rules, but the strongest rules were only at the ninth heaven. But now, his strength had fallen to rock bottom. When he was passing through the energy storm, he had used up the last bit of his strength. Now he was really at the end of his rope. Wang, a figure appeared, exuding a great aura that could suppress heaven and earth. Empyrean 9-5. The moment he appeared, he was naturally targeted by heaven and earth. Endless lightning crashed towards him. Joyless, Empyrean 9-5 exclaimed. He was extremely shocked. The person in front of him should have died more than a dozen epochs ago, but now he suddenly appeared. Even with his shrewdness, he was shocked. Empyrean Joyless laughed boldly and said, "You didn't think that I would return, did you?" Empyrean 9-5 snorted. His face was expressionless, but endless waves surged in his heart. Back then, Empyrean Joyless had been the same as Empyrean Born Original Life. They had both crashed into the connection point between the two realms, sacrificing themselves to protect the celestial realm. Now that Empyrean Born Original Life had returned, what about Empyrean Born Original Life? If Empyrean Born Original Life had not died, then things would become troublesome. Fortunately, he glanced at Empyrean Joyless. Empyrean Joyless' power of heaven and earth had basically been exhausted, and he was also heavily injured. Even if he did not attack, he would quickly walk towards death. This unfilial son. Empyrean 9-5 looked at Ling Han, who was in Empyrean Joyless' hand, and killing intent flashed in his eyes. Back then, he had personally chased after Ling Han, but he had actually allowed him to escape to the foreign realm. This was his humiliation. How could an Empyrean not attack? Hand over this unfilial son, and this Empyrean will let you enjoy the rest of your days in peace, he said. He seemed generous, but he knew that Empyrean Joyless did not have much time left, so he deliberately said this. Empyrean Joyless laughed coldly. 9-5, you really are shameless. For the sake of your own transcendence, you have cast aside all living beings in the celestial realm. You still have the face to stand in front of this Empyrean. Are you seeking death? Empyrean 9-5 said sinisterly. You have at most 100 years left. This Empyrean doesn't mind sending you on your way sooner. Empyrean Joyless laughed loudly. That's right. This Empyrean indeed does not have much time left. But dragging someone down with me before I die is not a problem. Do you want to transform into the Tao together with this Empyrean? Empyrean Joyless said disdainfully. You are already at the end of your rope. Do you still have the qualifications to die together with this Empyrean? You overestimate yourself. Xiao, as he spoke, brilliant lights flashed continuously in the sky. Many people had already appeared in the surroundings. They were all immortal kings. They naturally sensed the abnormal waves of energy and ran over to see what was going on. However, how could a ninth heaven immortal king compare to an Empyrean in terms of speed? There were truly many people who came. 10,000 Ancient Immortal King, Evergreen Immortal King, Treading Cloud Immortal King, Thousand Words Immortal King, Shang Jiwei. And these immortal kings all revealed expressions of extreme shock when they saw Empyrean Joyless. There was actually another Empyrean in the celestial realm. This Empyrean will say it one more time. Hand over that unfilial son, or you will accompany him in death. Empyrean Joyless issued his final order. Empyrean Joyless did not care at all. This Empyrean will fight with all his strength. It won't be a problem for me to drag you down with me. If you want to transform into the Tao, this Empyrean will fulfill your wish. Empyrean Joyless instantly frowned. Although he knew that Empyrean Joyless' injuries were extremely severe, and that he did not have much time left, exactly how much battle prowess he had left was still a question. The other party was someone who would definitely die. If he was dragged down with him, then he would naturally suffer a great loss. Hee fellow Taoist, it has been more than a dozen epochs since we last met. It seems that your complexion is not too good. A cold laugh rang out. Another supreme paragon had arrived. Empyrean Feng Qing. If this Empyrean and fellow Taoist 9-5 join forces, do you still have the confidence to drag one of us down with you? Empyrean Feng Qing asked. Empyrean Joyless still did not care at all. With just a wisp of your thoughts. There was a look of disdain on his face. It was as if he could crush these two powerful existences with a single strike. This Empyrean's true body will definitely arrive in less than an hour, Empyrean 9-5 said calmly. This Empyrean is the same. Empyrean Feng Qing coldly looked at Empyrean Joyless. Fellow Taoist, you still accepted the good intentions of this Empyrean and fellow Taoist 9-5. Selfish fellow, don't talk about this with this Empyrean. Empyrean Joyless was not swayed at all. He was filled with heroic spirit as he pointed at Empyrean 9-5 and Empyrean Feng Qing. Bring it on. This Empyrean will accept all of it. Reading on a phone is more refreshing. Chapter 2373. Everyone was impressed. Heavenly Venerable Wu Le was too domineering, facing two Heavenly Venerables alone. He was clearly riddled with wounds, but he was fearless, looking down on the world. If he was still at his peak, how heroic would he be? Ling Han could imagine that when Heavenly Venerable Wu Le had battled a foreign realm Heavenly Venerable alone, he had also charged forward with two fists at the same time, turning the ages into nothing, and ending the foreign realm's thoughts of invading for several epochs. It made one's blood boil, fascinate and admire. Unfortunately, Feng Qing and the other two Heavenly Venerables had deliberately concealed this battle. The later generations had not even heard of Heavenly Venerable Wu Le, and the original born Heavenly Venerable was the same. If not for the fact that some old celestial kings had come from that era, the original born Heavenly Venerable's sacrifice would have been buried in history. Heavenly Venerable Feng Qing's face darkened. Brother Wu Le, you don't have much time left. Even if you can protect this brat once, can you protect him 10 times, 100 times, or 1,000 times? Heavenly Venerable Wu Le snorted. As long as I am alive, no one is allowed to touch a single hair of his. Feng Qing and the 9 and 5 Heavenly Sovereigns didn't say anything. Their eyes were so cold that they seemed to be able to freeze time and space. Even a 9th level immortal king would shiver as chills intertwined in their eyes. One had to know. This was only the divine senses of two Heavenly Venerables. If they came in person, how terrifying would it be? Heavenly Venerables were too powerful. More and more celestial kings arrived. And then not only celestial kings, but many ascending origin realm and immortal palace realm cultivators also arrived. Most of them were elites of the younger generation, such as Ji Wuming, Shi Chanzi, Desolation, Jialan, Rain Emperor and so on. When they saw Ling Han, their eyes almost popped out of their sockets. How was this possible? Wasn't this guy being hunted by a Heavenly Venerable? Apparently, he escaped into a foreign realm, but after a stroll, not only did he return unscathed, but he even had a Heavenly Venerable accompanying him. What kind of luck was this? Ling Han swept a glance over and stopped on the Rain Emperor. He smiled slightly at this second brother, and then slid over, landing on Desolation. He was shocked. This guy actually didn't die. This was the first time he had seen a dead person come back to life. This was definitely the methods of an Empyrean. It was truly shocking. Even the dead could be saved. This was truly heaven-defying. However, whether it was Ling Han, Ji Wuming or Desolation, none of them had the right to speak. The 3 Heavenly Venerates were the main characters on the scene. They were the only main characters. More people arrived, but after a while, the space was torn apart, and two people walked out almost at the same time. Xiao, Heavenly Lord 9-5, and Heavenly Lord Feng Qing's divine senses immediately shot toward the two of them, before disappearing in a flash. These two were the true bodies of the two celestial masters. Now that his true body had arrived, his might was naturally incomparable to before. He didn't even need to make any movements. The heavens were trembling, the earth was cracking, and thunderclouds were surging. The boundless lightning tribulation had already taken shape, transforming into an ocean of lightning giants that smashed towards the two Empyreans. Hand him over or die, Heavenly Lord Feng Qing said coldly. He was clearly only at the height of an ordinary person, but when people looked at him, it was as if they were looking at a god that was billions of zhang tall. They could only prostrate themselves in worship. What a fool's dream! Heavenly Lord Wu Lu sneered. If he wanted to hand over Heavenly Lord Feng Qing, he would have done so a long time ago. He hadn't fled earlier, firstly because of his pride as a heavenly venerate, and secondly because he knew that no matter where he fled, he would be caught by those two. So he might as well fight. Now that the two of them were in pain, they naturally didn't dare to say anything else. Then I'll send you on your way, Heavenly Lord 9-5 said, his voice tyrannical and filled with the Emperor's might. Instantly, the majority of people knelt down, feeling as if their hearts were about to shatter. Only a few ninth-stage celestial kings were exceptions. Those were all peak celestial kings. 9-5, do you really think of yourself as a supreme? Heavenly Lord Wu Lu sneered. He actually took the initiative to attack. His hand pressed out, transforming into a millstone that blotted out the sky and suppressed the 9-5. An ancient rune appeared on the millstone. It surpassed the height of the laws, as if it was unraveling the true essence of the world. The ninth-stage celestial kings immediately widened their eyes. They had to look carefully. This was a technique that a heavenly venerate was casting. If they could figure it out, they might be able to open the door to becoming a heavenly venerate. Heavenly venerates surpassed the laws, but that didn't mean that they couldn't use them. This was Heavenly Lord Wu Li's own Tao. Heavenly Lord 9-5 naturally wasn't afraid. He brandished his fists and met the attack. Boom! 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 The battle between two heavenly venerates was too terrifying. The world seemed to be torn apart, as if the great desolate apocalypse was about to arrive. As they fought, the lightning tribulation naturally became even more terrifying. Heavenly venerates were experts who could truly destroy the world. They would be targeted by the world if they appeared, and if they fought, they would suffer an even more intense backlash from the world. But now the two heavenly venerates didn't care. They only fought with all their might. Heavenly venerate Sealer Qing stared at Ling Han. Just her gaze alone was enough to make Ling Han feel like his skin was about to explode. Small tower, Ling Han said softly. Instantly, a powerful power surged in his body, and the aura of a pseudo-heavenly venerate spread out. After returning to the celestial realm, the Black Tower could naturally draw on the power of heaven and earth to revive itself. However, the Black Tower still hadn't fully recovered. Thus, it could only allow Ling Han to reach the level of a pseudo-heavenly venerate. Otherwise, it could still rise to a higher level. However, this was more than enough to match the pressure of heavenly venerate Sealer Qing. After all, he didn't need to resist the heavenly venerate's direct attack. Heavenly venerate Sealer Qing attacked. He instantly reached in front of Ling Han. His hand was as large as a star, and he wanted to crush Ling Han. Sealer Qing, what's the big deal about bullying a little brat? Heavenly venerate Wu Lu suddenly charged over, smashing a fist toward Heavenly venerate Sealer Qing's head. Heavenly venerate Sealer Qing knew that Heavenly venerate Wu Lu was already at the end of his rope, but it was an attack from a heavenly venerate, after all. How could he dare to be careless? He had no choice but to give up his attack on Ling Han, and turn to block Heavenly venerate Wu Li's attack. Ha 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 ha! Heavenly venerate Wu Lu laughed loudly, his heroic spirit soaring. He was fighting against two great heavenly venerates alone, yet he still attacked with every attack. It was as if he could fight against two great heavenly venerates alone. Everyone exclaimed in shock. They hadn't thought that this newly appeared heavenly venerate would actually be so awesome. Yet Feng Qing and Jiu Wu knew in their hearts, It wasn't that they were no match for Wu Le. On the contrary, he was already riddled with wounds, and his battle prowess had plummeted. Either one of them was actually stronger than Wu Le. However, Heavenly Venerate Wu Li's attacks were all aimed at perishing together, and they didn't have the resolve to die with him. In fact, they weren't even willing to be heavily wounded. Thus, Heavenly Venerate Wu Lu naturally had the upper hand and initiative. However, this situation wouldn't last for long. Under the pressure of battle at their level, Heavenly Venerate Wu Li's injuries would quickly erupt. They wouldn't even need to do anything before they would be slain by the world. Do you really think I can't do anything to you? Heavenly Venerate Jiu Wu Lu was truly enraged. His forehead split open, and an immortal sword fell out. Instantly, everyone who used swords felt their sword hearts tremble, as if they were about to collapse. Regardless of whether or not their swords were kept in their divine artifacts, they all let out mournful wails. Chapter 2374. A Beautiful Romance. Kill. 9-5 Heavenly Venerate waved his sword, and a dazzling light shot out. Only the dense sword chi was left in the world. It was as if an emperor was traveling, and everyone could only kneel and worship him. This was an Empyrean treasure artifact, the 9-5 Great Emperor Sword. In front of this Emperor Sword, any sword-type treasure artifact could only tremble. This was respect for an Empyrean. Heavenly Venerate Wu Le clenched his fist to meet it. Pung pung pung. The sword light and fist chi collided, and the light spread out for hundreds of millions of miles. After exchanging hundreds of blows, the two sides finally ended this round of confrontation. Heavenly Venerate Wu Li's fist was covered in layers of blood, like golden celestial liquid. Heavenly Venerate Wu Le frowned slightly. His combat strength had fallen too much, and he had actually been injured by his opponent's weapon. His original intention was for the battle to reach its climax, attracting the intervention of heaven and earth, so that both sides would not dare to continue fighting. Otherwise, the power of heaven and earth would go berserk, and a first-step Empyrean would not be able to resist it. After all, they had not transcended and were limited by this world. But he had not expected that his combat strength would fall so much. If this continued, as long as Heavenly Venerate Feng Qing also took out his treasure artifact, then the two of them should be able to quickly suppress him. Wu Le, why bother? Heavenly Venerate Feng Qing said coldly, since you have already entered the dust of history, why do you still want to appear? Heavenly Venerate Wu Le laughed, and his fighting spirit burned again. How could a Heavenly Venerate feel despair? Even after being refined by Heavenly Venerate Heng Huang for so many years, he had never given up. He had always bitterly guarded that almost impossible hope. But he really waited until Ling Han appeared. He casually wiped the Heavenly Venerate blood on Ling Han. Ling Han immediately groaned. He felt like his skin was on fire, and blood flowed out of his orifices. It had to be said that the ancestral monarch blood was a great supplement, and Ling Han had only obtained 14 lotuses and below. This was a Heavenly Venerate blood, so it was naturally extremely domineering. Luckily, when Heavenly Venerate Wu Le smeared the blood on Ling Han, he had already eliminated the baleful aura. Otherwise, even with Ling Han's current strength, he would not be able to withstand it. But the benefits were endless. This was a Heavenly Venerate blood, which Heavenly Venerate would let their blood nourish others. If not for the fact that Heavenly Venerable, 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 but now, wasting it was still a waste. It was better to fulfill Ling Han's wish. Arg! Ling Han roared. The celestial blood entered his body, transforming into a surging flood. This power was too shocking, and he felt as if his entire body was about to explode. It was incomparably painful. However, the boundless mighty power of heaven and earth was transforming his physique. This was similar to the void energy, but it was clear that Heavenly Venerate Wu Le did not control the void energy. He was a first-step Heavenly Venerate, and possessed a unique power in the immortal domain. Even under such pain, Ling Han was still carefully experiencing it, because this was an extremely rare opportunity. Now that he had come into contact with this power, it would lay the foundation for him to step into the Empyrean realm in the future. When an Empyrean achieved the Tao, they had to grasp this unique power. This was the foundation of an Empyrean, and it was forever engraved in their bones. It represented that they would forever be a person of this plane. Whichever plane one attained the Tao, and would leave a unique mark on that plane. With his current quasi-Empyrean strength, he was qualified to make a detailed comparison. He discovered that the unique power in the immortal domain was slightly inferior to the void energy. It was just a tiny bit. There was almost no difference between the two, but there was still that tiny bit of difference. What nonsense are you spouting? Come and fight. Heavenly Venerate Wu Li's battle intent blazed. He had been suppressed for more than a dozen epochs. Previously, he had resisted the urge to fight in order to escort Ling Han back. But at this moment, he only had the lofty aspiration to fight a grand battle. Heavenly Venerate Feng Qing no longer spoke. A string of purple bells appeared above his head, and a primordial concept circulated around them. Upon closer inspection, one could see that dragons and phoenixes were entwined around the purple bells. Heavenly Venerate Wu Li clenched his fists and revealed an angry expression. You actually refined the dragon and phoenix ancestors. These two were the first living beings born at the beginning of the world, and they were the most powerful existences among them. They could practically represent the immortal domain, but their souls had been extracted by Heavenly Venerate Feng Qing to enhance the power of his treasure. Heavenly Venerate Feng Qing smiled faintly. I never refined my own treasure, because I was waiting for the dragon and phoenix ancestors to become half-step Empyreans. It just so happens that I can refine my myriad dragon sky phoenix bell. Everyone was speechless when they heard this. The dragon and phoenix ancestors were well-known figures among Ninth Firmament immortal kings, and they had a chance of taking the final step. It was said that they had been in seclusion for the past few epochs, which filled many immortal kings with anticipation. Once these two appeared, the immortal domain might have two more Empyreans. But now, it turned out that the souls of these two powerful immortal kings had been extracted by Heavenly Venerate Feng Qing and refined into a treasure. This was too much. But who dared to say anything? I originally wanted to refine your remains after you died to increase the power of the myriad dragon sky phoenix bell. But since you are so stubborn, I will directly refine you. With the essence blood of an Empyrean infusing it, I believe that this treasure will become even more powerful. Heavenly Venerate Feng Qing said coldly. Heavenly Venerate Wu Li was furious, and his black hair shot up into the sky. He didn't expect that Heavenly Venerate Feng Qing would still have designs on him, wanting to use his remains to refine a treasure after he died. However, the two Empyreans had gone all out, and he was alone and heavily injured. How could he match up to them? He had roamed his entire life, and he had encountered all sorts of dangers and desperate situations. Even when the foreign Empyreans had come knocking on his door, he had met them fearlessly and successfully kept them out. But now he realized that there was really no way out. Why hadn't this damned power of heaven and earth reached its limit? Why did the two Empyreans not dare to act rashly? Otherwise, the three of them would only perish together. It's time to end this. Heavenly Venerate 95 drew his sword, and the aura of a great emperor filled the air. Hung! Ling Han's body bounced up into the air, releasing a terrifying boom, as if a battle drum was beating inside his body. Heavenly Venerate Feng Qing and Heavenly Venerate 95 walked towards him at the same time, feeling that his present condition was slightly abnormal. In their eyes, a half-step Empyrean was not much different from trash. At most, they would have to spend some effort to deal with him. But the aura that Ling Han was exuding at this moment surpassed that of a half-step Empyrean. It wasn't the blood of Heavenly Venerate Wu Li, but rather something that seemed to be reviving inside his body. Ah! Ling Han roared loudly. His chest split open, and a black tower suddenly appeared. Born by fate! Shang Jiwei exclaimed in shock in the distance, tears instantly streaming down her face. Heavenly Venerate! The large black dog also darted out from who knew where, jumping up and down. Shua, shua, shua. The Empress, Hunyo Lu Yutong, and the others were all flung out from the black tower, including things like star stones and ancestral king blood. Xiao. The black tower rapidly enlarged, turning into a 9-storied tower filled with might and an ancient aura. Born by fate, you are already dead. So what can a mere precious tool do? Heavenly Venerate Feng Qing asked coldly. For example, when they refined their precious tools, they would infuse a sliver of their divine sense into them. Now, it was this divine sense that was showing its might, allowing the Black Tower to unleash battle prowess on the level of a Heavenly Venerate. Chapter 2376. At the level of Celestial King, who didn't only have the Tao of heaven and earth in their eyes to become the strongest. Shang Jiwei was a 9th heaven Celestial King. Although she wasn't the strongest existence in the world, there were only 3 or 4 people who could surpass her. However, she didn't hesitate to transform herself into Tao to be with the one she loved. What moved people even more was that the Heavenly Venerate-born Fate was actually dead, only a weak will fused with heaven and earth. Rather than saying he was alive, he was more like a slave, forever trapped inside. However, Shang Jiwei didn't hesitate to choose to transform into Tao. This kind of love was respectable, but also regrettable. The Heavenly Venerate-born Fate sighed. Jiwei, why do you have to do this? He couldn't do anything. He could interfere with the 2 Heavenly Venerates, because Heavenly Venerates weren't tolerated by heaven and earth. He only increased the strength of the backlash, but a 9th heaven Celestial King was within the system of heaven and earth, so he couldn't do anything. After all, he was already dead, and what was left was only a sliver of his will. Even Ling Han was extremely moved. Because of Hun Yo, he had always been at odds with Shang Jiwei, but now he felt that this woman was truly noble. However, if it were him, he would definitely not be willing for his own woman to end her life in such a way. However, no one could stop Shang Jiwei. Her whole body was burning with flames, and she was voluntarily burning her life force. A 9th heaven Celestial King's self-destruction would kill anyone who dared to get close. Only Heavenly Venerates could ignore it. But now, the 3 Heavenly Venerates were fighting fiercely, and none of them could stop her. Boom! Shang Jiwei completely burned, turning into a flame that finally disappeared between heaven and earth. But before she transformed into Tao, there was no trace of pain or reluctance on her face, only affection. After several epochs, she could still see her dream lover again. This kind of joy surpassed everything. She was tired, and only wanted to snuggle in the arms of her lover, and never wake up again. Kwang, heaven and earth mourned, feeling sorry for the death of a celestial king. Silly girl, silly girl. The Heavenly Venerate-born Fate sighed. He stretched out his hand, and forcibly collected Shang Jiwei's dissipating divine sense. Even if a 9th heaven celestial king died, their Tao would be extinguished. They would completely dissipate, not leaving a trace in heaven and earth. The Heavenly Venerate-born Fate defied the heavens. He forcibly gathered Shang Jiwei's divine sense, and then merged with heaven and earth. Although Shang Jiwei could never come back to life, she could never die either. She existed in the form of a consciousness between heaven and earth, forever accompanying the Heavenly Lord of original birth. To everyone else, this was an incomparably pitiful matter. But to Shang Jiwei, perhaps this was the best ending. No matter how big the world was, no matter how powerful he was, no matter how strong he was, what was the point without the company of his loved ones? He shook. Shang, born Tian, and born God, of heaven and earth, and venerable, of Jiwei of celestial king, of heaven and celestial born was, and of heaven and of. On the other side, the battle of the 3 celestial venerates was reaching its climax. It made the targeting of heaven and earth even more terrifying. This was not because of born Heavenly Venerate, but because their destructive power was too terrifying. Suddenly, the 3 celestial venerates stopped. If they continued fighting, they would be finished. They had no choice. They were only first-step celestial venerates. They had yet to transcend heaven and earth, so they were bound by heaven and earth. From this day forth, anyone who dares to target this kid will be my enemy. Celestial Venerate Lifeless Born was extremely domineering. His gaze swept across the celestial kings, filled with threat. And the 2 of you, He looked at Finching and 9-5. If you have any designs on this kid, I will wipe out your entire lineage. Are you threatening me? Celestial Venerate Finching said coldly. He was infuriated. Celestial Venerate Lifeless Born sneered. So what if I am threatening you? If you dare to touch this kid, I will wipe out your lineage. So what if you are unhappy? I don't care. Celestial Venerate Finching's expression instantly turned ugly. Ever since he became an Celestial Venerate, when had he ever been threatened to such a degree? Everyone wanted to transcend, so how could they care about other things? But Celestial Venerate Lifeless Born acted like a ruffian. The problem was that such threats were very effective. Regardless of Finching or 9-5, the two of them had their own descendants. Although existences like them no longer placed too much importance on familial ties, who would be willing to have their bloodline cut off? Moreover, Celestial Venerate Lifeless Born was truly powerful. Finching and 9-5 had to join forces to resist him. This made such a threat even more realistic, because Celestial Venerate Lifeless Born didn't say that he would let the two of them off. Damn it, how did this person's strength rise by so much? However, I can also give you a chance to kill him. Celestial Venerate Lifeless Born's tone changed. As long as it doesn't surpass this kid by 2 minor realms, anyone can make a move. I will definitely not interfere. The moment he said this, Ling Han couldn't help but grit his teeth. He knew that Celestial Venerate Lifeless Born wanted to temper himself. It was just that this Celestial Venerate really thought highly of him. He had actually given him the space to surpass 2 minor realms. It had to be known that the Celestial Domain didn't have Emperor stars. For example, if Ji Wuming was 2 minor realms higher than Ling Han, just how powerful would his battle power be? However, no one knew that Ling Han's greatest strength right now wasn't his realm, but his body techniques. Under the tempering of heaven and earth power, his body techniques had far surpassed his realm. Even a super emperor star like Shui Ge had been trampled by him. Someone 2 minor realms higher than him wanted to kill him? Unless the other party was as monstrous as him, and had long since come into contact with heaven and earth power. That was impossible. Even a monstrous genius like Ji Wuming would not be able to do that unless he was a reincarnated heavenly venerate. However, would a heavenly venerate reincarnate just to kill him be a joke? Finching 9-5, do you agree or not? Celestial Venerate Lifeless Born asked domineeringly. Finching and 9-5 were speechless. Even if the two of them joined forces, they could only match Lifeless Born. Even with Blue Fire, who had yet to show himself, 3 heavenly venerates working together could indeed suppress Lifeless Born. However, it was impossible for them to kill this person. With Celestial Venerate Lifeless Born's strength, apart from a second-step heavenly venerate, who else could stop him? They could only look for Blue Fire to discuss this matter. The 2 heavenly venerates looked as if they had eaten a dead child. They nodded, turned toward open space and left. They would definitely send their most outstanding disciples to kill Ling Han. In addition, they would quickly find Celestial Venerate Blue Fire, and the 3 of them would join forces to deal with Lifeless Born. Otherwise, once the passage between the 2 worlds reopened, who knew what Celestial Venerate Lifeless Born would do? They desperately wanted to transcend. Under this premise, they could abandon anything and sacrifice anything. Seeing the 2 heavenly venerates leave with their tails between their legs, everyone was in disbelief. A heavenly venerate, a supreme existence, had actually been forced to leave? Was the world about to change? Chapter 2377. Congratulations, fellow Taoist. There's hope for you to take the second step, the Heavenly Venerable Fateborn said. The Heavenly Venerable Void Joy nodded and said, I've heard this brat talk about you, and I have to thank you. Without your spirit tool, I couldn't have escaped. He didn't refer to himself, giving the Heavenly Venerable Fateborn enough face. The Heavenly Venerable Origin Born turned to Ling Han and broke into a smile. In truth, he had been paying attention to this disciple all this while. It was just that he had never encountered a time where he needed to make a move. It was only at this moment that he finally showed himself. Not only had he resolved Ling Han's worries, he had even found him a powerful backer. He was also very gratified. This disciple from another lifetime had hope of surpassing him and leaving the future to Ling Han, so he was very relieved. Ling Han thought for a moment and bowed. Greetings, Master. Ever since he started cultivating the indestructible Heaven's Scroll, he had formed a master-disciple relationship with the Heavenly Venerable Fate-born. The Heavenly Venerable Fate-born nodded. In the future, you can only rely on yourself. To awaken me, the Tower of Three Realms also released its remaining might, and then went silent. Unless you can reach the Heaven Venerable tier, you can only awaken it. Ling Han nodded. I definitely will. Very good, very good. The Heavenly Venerable Fate-born said. The time he could manifest was limited, and he would return to the Heavenly Tao in the future. Though he existed, no one could know, and he could never make a sound again. Fusing with the Tao was equivalent to offering oneself to the Heavenly Tao, and naturally could not have the existence of oneself. Heavenly Venerable. The large black dog ran over, barking at the sky. The Heavenly Venerable Fate-born looked at the large black dog and said with a smile, Little Black, help Ling Han well in the future. Don't worry. The large black dog stood up like a human and patted Ling Han's shoulder. I'll always take care of him, and I'll call him if there's anything good. Ling Han almost kicked him. What else could this damn dog do apart from setting people up? I'm leaving. You'll have to walk your own paths in the future, the Heavenly Venerable Fate-born said, his figure becoming dimmer and dimmer. Farewell, my lord. Almost everyone knelt. They had all heard of the Heavenly Venerable Fate-born's deeds. They had fused with the Tao, crashed into the connection point of the two realms, and won peace for the celestial realm for several epochs. Such a magnificent feat was naturally worthy of respect. The original born Heavenly Lord smiled. His figure gradually became indistinct, returning to the world. Wang, a black tower descended, but it had lost all its radiance. Celestial Venerable. The large black dog was sobbing uncontrollably. Normally, he wasn't a proper person, and only now did he reveal his true nature. Farewell, fellow Taoist, said Heavenly Lord Wu Lu. Although the heavenly tribulation was terrifying, he did not care at all. He was about to complete the first step of the Heavenly Lord realm, and was extremely powerful. He could crush the lightning giant with a single thought. As long as he didn't take the initiative to attack, and let the heavens and earth target him, even more frightening, he was absolutely indestructible. He then turned to Ling Han, patted the latter's shoulder, and said with a smile, Brat, you have to walk your own path. It is impossible for me to pave the way for you. Moreover, only the path that you walk on your own will be broad enough, and you will be able to walk further. Don't come looking for me for no reason, but if anyone dares to bully the weak, I won't let them off. Ling Han nodded. He had no intention of relying on anyone. As long as their cultivation level was similar, there was no need for him to be afraid of anyone. That's right, that's right. The large black dog had cried his heart out just then, but the speed at which he recovered was also unbelievably fast. He had actually already placed his hand on Ling Han's shoulder, and said with a cheeky smile, Kid, did you hear that? In the future, you'll have to fend for yourself. He paused, and then said to Heavenly Lord Wu Lu, My lord, please take care of me in the future. Grandpa Dog is 100 times more handsome than this brat, and his talent is 10,000 times higher. You won't be able to find him anywhere else. Scram. Faced with the large black dog's shamelessness, even Heavenly Lord Wu Lu couldn't help but kick him. Thankfully, Heavenly Lord Wu Lu wasn't truly enraged. Otherwise, if he kicked him, the large black dog could say goodbye to this world. That's it. Heavenly Lord Wu Lu flicked his sleeve and took a step forward. He had already disappeared into the boundless distance. He had been away from the celestial realm for over a dozen epochs, so he naturally wanted to travel around. Ling Han! Ling Han! Ling Han! The group of youngsters all walked over and surrounded Ling Han one after another. Back then, Ling Han had displayed his invincible might, trapping and killing more than 100 ancient kings of the foreign realm, practically blinding everyone's eyes. However, before they had the time to interact with him, he had already been forced to flee to the foreign realm. I look forward to battling you again, Ji Wuming said from afar. his hands clasped behind his back. Humph! There was a sinister coldness in the desolate desolation's eyes. If it weren't for the fact that Heavenly Lord Wu Lu had said that those whose cultivation level was 2 minor levels higher than Ling Han's were not allowed to make a move, he would definitely have killed Ling Han by now. One had to realize that he had died at Ling Han's hands once. If it weren't for the fact that Heavenly Lord Feng Qing was nature-defying, the grass on his grave would already be a foot tall. When Ling Han returned to the celestial realm, his cultivation level directly dropped to the second secret of the Immortal Palace tier, which was the same as when he had left. However, he had actually already transformed a portion of his origin power into source power, so he could be considered to be in the ascending origin tier. How exactly this cultivation level should be calculated was a problem. However, the aura that he was currently exuding was indeed only in the Immortal Palace tier. Thus, the desolate desolation, who had already advanced into the ascending origin tier, naturally could not make a move. Ling Han walked over and said, "You're not dead yet?" The desolate desolation's face turned green, yet he only humphed and did not answer. "Then I'll send you off again." Ling Han raised his fist. His cultivation level was difficult to determine, but his body techniques were not affected by regulations, and he still had battle prowess that surpassed the consummate level of the ascending origin tier. "It's beneath my dignity to exchange blows with you," the desolate desolation said with a scoff. "Don't worry, since I'm the one who initiated the challenge, even if I really die in battle, Lord Wu Lu will not make trouble for you," Ling Han said with a smile. "How about it? Do you dare to fight?" A thought flashed through the desolate desolation's mind. Even if he could not kill Ling Han, he could still ruthlessly humiliate him. This was something that Ling Han had brought upon himself, wasn't it? When he thought up to this point, he nodded and said, "Since you insist on seeking your own humiliation, I'll fulfill your wish." He had already advanced into the ascending origin tier, and though it was only small accomplishment, it was naturally a piece of cake for him to suppress a mere Immortal Palace tier. "Fourth brother, why don't you let me do it?" The Rain Emperor spoke up. He had caught up from behind, and had also successfully advanced into the ascending origin tier. Ling Han shook his head and said, "I'll deal with this kind of trash. There's no need to trouble second brother." "All right." The Rain Emperor nodded. He believed that Ling Han would not do something that he was not confident in. Since Ling Han was so certain, then he definitely had absolute confidence. "There's no need for a few seconds. We'll be done soon. Second brother, please wait for a while, and let's have a good gathering," the Rain Emperor said with a smile. At first, he had wanted to say a few seconds, but when he thought that the Rain Emperor could not possibly know the concept of seconds, he changed his words. "Ling Han, you are too arrogant," the desolate desolation said coldly. He was incredibly furious, and wanted nothing more than to tear Ling Han into pieces. Ling Han crooked a finger and said, "I'll teach you how to be a proper person in 3 moves. "Enough!" The desolate desolation roared. His voice transformed into a mountain-splitting giant axe that cleaved towards Ling Han. "First move," Ling Han said with a smile. He casually threw a punch, and it landed on the giant axe. A terrifying power surged in Peng. This giant axe was immediately shattered into pieces. However, the power of the punch did not dissipate, and it continued to blast towards the desolate desolation. The desolate desolation's eyes immediately bulged, and he was completely in disbelief. Reading on mobile. Chapter 2378. Desolation was dumbfounded. How could a tiny immortal palace rival his power? No, not just rival, he even had the upper hand. He hurriedly punched out angrily, blocking the remaining power of Ling Han's fist, but his figure involuntarily retreated. Tung tung tung. With every step he took, the ground trembled, and the entire ground sank slightly. This was because he had suffered too much power. As he retreated, he vomited blood, and his hair stood straight, as if someone was pulling on it. After retreating for over 100 miles, he finally stopped. Deep footprints were left on the ground, and a trail of blood was left behind. Everyone was shocked, unable to accept this at all. Was he trying to defy the heavens? Previously, Ling Han had displayed invincible might, slaughtering even ancestral kings and celestial kings. Firstly because he had obtained the magic cube of origin, and secondly because he had a heavenly venerable tool. But now that the neutral zone had been destroyed, he could not borrow this power. Furthermore, that heavenly venerable tool had also exhausted its power, and the heavenly venerable origin born had personally explained it. Then how could he be so freakish? Completely incomprehensible. Ling Han smiled faintly. Ready to die again? Desolation stared at Ling Han, his breathing a little heavy. After a while, he took out a pair of boxing gloves and put them on. There were multiple glowing seals on them, instantly increasing his aura by a few times. This was naturally an ascending origin tier-level treasure. He had obtained it in an ancient site, and it was only after he advanced into the ascending origin tier that he could unleash its full power. Previously, he had never had the chance to use it because his opponents were too weak, and he did not need it at all. But now, even if he drew out this treasure, he still did not have the slightest confidence. His opponent was too strong, and he had no confidence at all. He couldn't help but ask, "What exactly did you experience in the foreign realm?" Ling Han being so unbelievably strong definitely had something to do with the foreign realm. Otherwise, how could his strength increase so rapidly just by going back and forth? Everyone couldn't help but perk up their ears. They were also very concerned. Ling Han smiled and said, "Other than the immortal realm and the foreign realm, there are countless worlds like this, and they are called planes. There are strong and weak planes. The strong planes have been invading the weak planes in order to devour the weak planes and make themselves stronger, so that they won't be devoured by the stronger planes." His words were a little roundabout, but the people around him were either prodigies or celestial kings. It was not a problem for them to grasp the main point of his words. Ling Han purposely used this as an excuse to talk about the origin world, because he hoped that more people would know what kind of environment they were in. In the future, there would be less infighting, more unity, and more motivation to move forward bravely. Sure enough, when everyone heard that there were many worlds like the foreign realm, there wasn't a single person who wasn't shocked. Even the immortal kings moved. They originally thought that there were only two worlds, the immortal domain and the foreign realm. As long as the foreign realm was stopped, everything would be peaceful. Ling Han continued, "When all the planes are added together, they are called the origin world, and the planes are also divided into 3 levels: low level, medium level, and high level. As for whether there are planes stronger than high level, perhaps there are, but it is not certain." Someone interrupted, "Then we belong to the high level planes?" Ling Han shook his head. "Whether it is us or the foreign realm, we are only low level planes. In fact, we are at the bottom of all the low level planes." When these words came out, everyone was in an uproar. How was that possible? The immortal domain had heavenly venerables, and how powerful were they? There was no one stronger than them. Since that was the case, they still couldn't be considered a high-level plane. Impossible. You must be exaggerating. Even if we are a little weaker than the foreign realm, we can still be considered a middle-level plane. Everyone shook their heads, completely unable to accept this. Ling Han chuckled. "The entire origin world is like this. The strong planes invade the weak planes. For example, the foreign realm, while they are invading us, they are being invaded by the Xian'anai plane." After a pause, he continued, "As for us, we are only being invaded, but we do not invade other planes. That is because we are already at the bottom of all the planes." Everyone was speechless. Ling Han's words were very reasonable. Of course, the premise was that what he said about the origin world was true. Under the plane invasion, our entire world will be destroyed, so we cannot have any illusions, Ling Han said solemnly. Chaos was impatient. He had heard Heavenly Venerable Feng Qing mention some things before, such as whether the immortal domain would be destroyed or not. He did not care at all, because if the day really came, Heavenly Venerable Feng Qing would bring his bloodline and leave the immortal domain. On the contrary, this was a great opportunity. Heavenly Venerable Feng Qing could transcend, then their bloodline would head to the high-level planes, and everyone would have a wider space to grow. Because the world was different, it would be more difficult for you to break through to the heavenly venerable realm in a low-level plane than in a high-level plane. There was no helping it, this was the environment. What does this have to do with your strength becoming stronger? He asked. Ling Han naturally did not need to answer him, but he glanced at the others and slowly said, because although the worlds are different, and the rules are also different, there are many similarities. Although our immortal domain is slightly weaker, we also have our own characteristics in terms of rules. If we combine the two and learn from each other's strengths to make up for our weaknesses, our battle prowess will naturally be stronger. As he spoke, he shot forward and arrived in front of Chaos, punching out. Chaos punched out, but with a bang, his glove flew off his hand, and his entire arm instantly turned into a rain of blood. Ling Han seemed to have appeared and performed a technique, but this was not the battle prowess after the two realms' rules had merged, but a body technique that he had cultivated by extracting the power of heaven and earth. But in order to prove his strength, Ling Han did not care at all. In any case, it was enough to let everyone know that what he said was right. Everyone came to a realization, and those powerful celestial kings and prodigies immediately looked tempted. They were all restless, wanting to enter the foreign realm and increase their battle prowess again. Poor Chaos, no one cared about his life at all. He gritted his teeth in hatred, with heavenly venerable Wu Lu so domineeringly supporting Ling Han, who dared to meddle in other people's business. Even Feng Qing and Jiu Wu, the two great heavenly venerables, had lowered their heads. If they wanted to deal with Ling Han, they could only let a supreme prodigy move, and their cultivation level could at most be 2 minor levels higher than Ling Han's. But from the looks of it now, not to mention 2 minor levels higher, even if it was 10 minor levels higher, they might not be Ling Han's match. Ling Han smiled and said, I have already cultivated to the ascending origin small tier in the foreign realm, but because the rules of the celestial realm are different, going up is the same as leaving. He showed his true cultivation level, and also deliberately set a trap for others, luring out those with ill intentions. Although he could no longer rely on the Black Tower now, Ling Han was full of confidence, and dared to face challenges and difficulties head-on. Chaos, meanwhile, was extremely depressed. So Ling Han's cultivation level was the same as his. Then the latter had merged the regulations of the two realms. No wonder his battle prowess was stronger than his. Chapter 2380. Ling Han was also astonished. He knew that the large black dog had the power of a celestial king long ago. But in his eyes, Wall had always been unfathomable. He had actually died with a single slap, which was completely unexpected. It was like a person who always boasted that he was the #1 expert in the world, and everyone believed him. But in the end, he was smashed into paste with a single slap. The contrast was really too great. Then my condolences. The large black dog patted Ling Han's shoulder, looking as if this matter had nothing to do with him. You damn dog. Ling Han wanted to kick this guy. But the large black dog was the ancestor of sneaky people. So how could he possibly fall for Ling Han's sneak attack? Instantly, he twisted his butt and dodged. Ling Han was just about to speak, but he discovered to his surprise that the pieces of wall that had been scattered all over the ground were actually wriggling and surging towards a certain direction. This was a bit like billions of ants returning to their nest. Very soon, these pieces all gathered together, and then began to fuse together. A sphere appeared first, and then at the same time, an arm, a leg and a neck grew out. When the head also appeared, the hands and legs also appeared, and it became a human figure. Wall came back to life again. Ling Han and the large black dog were both incredibly astonished. You had already been smashed into pieces, yet you could actually still come back to life. Moreover, you didn't even have any fart injuries. Interesting. The large black dog raised his paw, looking as if he wanted to play with Wall one more time. Wall's eyes lit up, and he shot towards the large black dog. The power doesn't seem very strong, but the destructive power is extremely shocking. The large black dog cried out in surprise. He waved his paw to block, and a few strands of dog fur were actually burned off, emitting a faint burnt smell. Ling Han knew that this should be because Wall had used the energy of Suzy. Thus, even though his cultivation level wasn't high, the power was extraordinary. Grandpa Dog will fight you. The large black dog charged out. He didn't use his Celestial King tier mighty power, and instead suppressed his cultivation level to fight with Wall. Wally was cold and detached. He actually didn't even ask the large black dog why he was attacking him, and he only focused on dodging. Occasionally, his eyes would also glow with a red light, which would condense into a terrifying destructive beam of light. The man and dog battled back and forth. If the large black dog did not use his Celestial King tier power, he would not be able to do anything to Wall. Instead, he would create great trouble for him. However, once the large black dog used his Celestial King tier power, the tile was unable to withstand it, and it was quickly shattered. However, Wally would not bleed, so he was not afraid no matter how many pieces there were. Very quickly, he pieced the pieces back together and came back to life. Ling Han nodded inwardly. Wally was created by the Xian'an plane, after spending hundreds of eras worth of resources. If he could be easily killed by an immortal king, then it would be a waste of such a cost. All right, let's all sit down and have some tea, he said with a smile. After the large black dog destroyed Wally a few more times, he finally retracted his claws. He was even more curious about Wally now. If he could also possess this kind of recovery ability, then wouldn't he need to be afraid of even celestial venerables in the future? You've consumed 30% of my energy, Wally said seriously, staring at the large black dog a few times. Bad dog. Pooh. Ling Han instantly spluttered. It was hard to imagine that Wally would actually say such a thing after holding it in for so long. Big brother, how did you learn this technique? Why don't you teach it to Grandpa Dog? The large black dog patted Wally's shoulder, acting like a good brother, extremely shameless. Wally frowned. I'm a super soldier made from superstring material, and I'm inclined towards assisting and calculating. You are a pure creature, a dog, so how could you possibly be my brother? Instantly, the large black dog's expression darkened. No matter how he thought about it, Wally's words sounded like he was insulting him. But Wally just had to say it so seriously, so it was very difficult for him to lose his temper. However, he very quickly revealed an expression of surprise, and turned to Ling Han saying, What nonsense is this guy babbling about? Why can't Grandpa Dog understand? Ling Han laughed and said, You were born from your parents, but he was made. Thus, if you want to learn this kind of ability, you have to first commit suicide. Perhaps he can also make you into a soldier. The large black dog hurriedly shook his head. Grandpa Dog lives freely, and doesn't want to die at all. Ling Han smiled and said, Damn dog, do you want to become a celestial venerable? The large black dog's eyes lit up. Why brat, you have a way. Do you have some supreme celestial fruit? Quickly give it to Grandpa Dog to eat, and I'll become a celestial venerable once I eat it. Ling Han glared at him angrily. Why don't you ascend to the heavens? Brat, are you scolding Grandpa Dog? The large black dog also glared. Ling Han sneered and said, Whether you want to learn or not, forget it. It's not like I don't have people to teach me. Brat, you're really good. The large black dog was skeptical. Becoming a celestial venerable was too difficult, and it was difficult for one to appear in several epics. For example, after Heavenly Venerable Wu Lu, more than a dozen epics had passed, and only Heavenly Venerable Origin Born had appeared. A mere ascending origin tier actually said that there was a way to become a celestial venerable. This was, no, how could this dog believe it? Ling Han put on airs, and smilingly said, If you don't believe it, forget it. I do. The large black dog hurriedly nodded. Come tell Grandpa Dog. Ling Han patted Wall's shoulder and said, Then it'll have to depend on him. The large black dog was very surprised. But when he recalled that Wall clearly did not have a very high cultivation level, yet could injure his dog fur, and could even recover after being smashed into smithereens by a celestial king, how could he not be a little miraculous? He was really a character too. Instantly he turned to Wall and said, Old brother, let's get intimate. Wall shone green light at the large black dog again, and continued to scan. Why are you always shining on Grandpa Dog? The large black dog bared his teeth. If it were not for the fact that he still believed that the other party had the secret to becoming a celestial venerable, he would definitely have pounced on him and taken a few bites. Check to see if he has rabies, Wally said seriously. Ha 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 ha. Ling Han laughed loudly. This Wall was not a living creature, so how could he possibly be sick? Obviously, this was Wall's revenge. Woof! The large black dog could not bear it any longer, and pounced on Wall, about to bite him, but was forcefully stopped by Ling Han. Fortunately, he also had a sense of propriety, and wanted to learn the method to become a celestial venerable from Wall. Thus, he was easily stopped by Ling Han. Otherwise, if a ninth heaven celestial king flew into a rage, how could Ling Han possibly stop him? Wall still explained the essence of the origin world, and also took out his formulas and models. The large black dog listened in confusion, and could not make heads or tails of it at all. Of course, this was completely different from the martial art that he cultivated, and it was equivalent to opening up another cultivation system. However, this was researching the essence of heaven and earth, and would not be viewed as a heresy by the heaven and earth. But the large black dog was cunning. From Ling Han, he had already learned the benefits of this kind of model and formula. Thus, he held a dog's head, and had already begun to ponder hard. I want to become a celestial venerable, and from today onwards, I will go into seclusion. If anyone disturbs me, I will beat him to death, the large black dog said, and then dug a hole to bury himself. He really had to go into seclusion. Ling Han chuckled. Even if the large black dog was already a ninth heaven celestial king, comprehending that model was still a small matter. The key was that he had never come into contact with void energy and so on. If he wanted to successfully transform the model into a cultivation technique, it would be as difficult as ascending to the heavens. This damn dog would come and beg him. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support. And don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.